Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report Live. And this will be the last time I say that without that being a throwback line. Now, last time you'll see that banner. Last time we'll be able to call ourselves the Washington football team on a live stream in this format, because we will be live for the reveal and the rebrand on the Today Show on the 2nd of February. We'll be starting that live stream bright and early at 7 o'clock because for some reason, and I know why, they don't want to tell us exactly when the reveal and rebrand is going to be unveiled on their show, because they're going to tease it and they're going to have their viewership go through the roof because everyone will be wanting to know, and they'll keep teasing us. Later on, coming up soon, coming up next, and it'll be 3 segments later. Coming up next, the Washington football team rebrand. What will the new name of the team be? We'll have it for you next. 3 hours later, we're still sitting there waiting. So we'll get here early, and we'll be a part of the festivities here live on the LouieTeeNetwork. And I've got a smorgasbord of topics, if you will, tonight that I want to address. I want to start the show off with the name because I've already said my piece on the name, but I'm hearing some things. I've talked to some people. I'm going to tell you what was told to me. So we'll talk about that. I also want to talk about the 30th anniversary of the last Super Bowl that this team won. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I have a feeling about it. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I watched all the videos, watched several different things that I saw, including Jack Kent Cook and Joe Gibbs and Bobby Beathard, or excuse me, not Bobby Beathard. Why can't I think of his damn name? I can see his face. Charlie Cashley accepting the Lombardi Trophy from Leslie Visser. So we're going to talk about that. And lastly, I also want to talk about the quarterback situation. And I'm going to give you a guy that I think Washington is going to go after aggressively, more aggressively than anybody else in free agency, or should I say in the trade market. And I think it's a guy that they're going to be targeting pretty heavily. And if they can get their hands on him, they're going to try and pry him away. But again, a lot is left to be done this offseason, and we'll see what happens and what dominoes fall where. But I got a guy that I think they are really high on, that I think they want to go after, and they're going to at least sniff around if nothing else. So let's first start with the name. So I told you Hogs, some variation of Hogs. I'm not changing that. I think it's wrong, but I'm not changing it. I'm sticking with it. It is what it is. I've given you my theory and I've drawn my inferences. So Hogs, some variation, it is for me. However, I've talked to 3 people, one that I really trust, 2 others that, However, they all said the same thing, which kind of gives me a little pause. So none of them know the actual name of the team. What they could tell me, though, and what they did say, was that it's not going to be any Hogs related. Now, one guy told me the biggest reason, because he said really the higher ups really wanted it to tie into past history. However, so the first thing he said was really Dan wanted Warriors, but they let the trademark expire and they couldn't get it back. So that was the first thing that went awry. He said the next thing was they wanted something to tie it back into the past. So they explored Hogs, but it's not something you can sell. From a merchandise standpoint, from a branding standpoint, nobody wants to buy anything with a pig on it. It's something that is a derogatory term for cops, and it's not something they want to tie the organization to. So that was what was told to me. Makes sense. And another thing that they said in regards to Hogs is that the Hogs, and I've said this to you guys before, so this was kind of confirmation for me for how I felt. Hogs is synonymous with winning and the offensive line during the glory days. Fast forward to present day, and you've got a bunch of fans who know nothing about the Hogs. They've heard of the Hogs. They've had stories passed down to them about what the Hogs were and how dominant they were. They've seen pictures of grown men wearing pig noses with wigs, and they know about the history, but they could care less because they didn't experience it. So Hogs does not resonate with a whole generation of Washington fans. And while you'll be bringing back that nostalgic feel for a portion of the fan base, the larger portion of the fan base, which is the younger demographic, could care less. They have no emotional attachment to Hogs, so you don't want to put yourself in a box. That was something else that was told to me. Makes a ton of sense. I said that to you guys already, that a lot of the fan base could care less about Hogs. They know nothing about it. Didn't see it, don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about it, and they could care less. I'm starting to believe, I'm going back to the original thing that I said to you guys, Red Tails or Commanders. One of those two. I'm hearing more Commanders. This is the reason I don't want to believe it's Commanders, and then I'll move on. Because if it is in fact Commanders, whether it looks sweet and the colors are awesome and the logo is dope, if it is in fact Commanders, I am going to take this organization to task yet again, because they gave footage of Jason Wright's Making the Brand video to a Richmond local television station without Commanders being blurred out. And if in fact that was a legit copy of what the actual mock-up is going to look like, the W that we saw, the Commanders logo, the circle with the year and all of this stuff in there, and then Commanders in the middle. If that is in fact what this thing looks like, and they couldn't even get that right, we're going to have some fun with that. Oh, best believe that we're going to have some fun with that, because I said, and I didn't want to believe this, because I said, you know what? Jason Wright's a smart guy. You know, he's a smart guy. He's not going to allow this process to be bungled. You know, the Sean Taylor thing was bad enough, and I don't think he really knew what he was getting himself into when he was a part of that whole buffoonery. Okay? That snafu, that foobar, as a wise man once said to me, that foobar, I was going to allow to be passed on to Dan Snyder and the rest of the organization, because they know better. When you know better, you do better. You just got here. So I'm going to let that one slide. You're not going to be on the hook for that. I'm charging that to Daniel Snyder's account. It's a tab he'll never pay off, by the way. But I'm charging it to his account any damn way. This, however, is exactly why you were brought here. To market, to get people excited, to do things the right way. And if you can't get a copy of your Making the Brand video to a local Richmond TV station with the proper things blurred out, that says to me it's the same clown show and buffoonery we've been dealing with here in Washington for the last 20 plus years under the regime of one Daniel Snyder. And it doesn't matter who is brought in, they're going to have the stench of this building, because there's no way Commanders can be the name and you let that out a whole entire month and a half before it was supposed to be released to the masses. Anyway, we'll see. That's why I find it hard to believe that it's Commanders, because if it is in fact Commanders and they bungled this thing the way that they did along the process with Tanya Snyder not knowing what to say and confusing people and all of this nonsense, then you know what? Same old Washington. No matter what the name is, we're now the Commanders. We're still up to the same old tricks. So let's hope that, I don't care what the name is. If it's Commanders, I'm going to take them to task, and then I'm going to say, hey, logo's pretty dope. You know, jerseys look pretty sweet. I like the color scheme. We'll get past it, because that's what we do as fans with this organization. We get pissed off, and then we say, all right, enough of that. Let's move on. So at this point, this organization is going to have a new name this time next week. In the spirit of the new name, I first want to reflect on the legacy of Washington football team. So I'm asking you out there, what are you going to most remember this brief period in time when this team was called the Washington football team? What are you going to remember most? What is the legacy of the Washington football team? 2 full seasons played under the nickname football team. Okay. What is the lasting legacy of that 2-year stretch? For me, I'm a glass half full guy. You guys know that. For me, I tend to lean towards being more positive than negative. So for me, it's the 2020 season with Ron Rivera and him having cancer. This team starting off with a bang with the 7 unanswered points against Philadelphia. I believe it was 27. Because we were down 17-0, and we beat them 27-17. So the 27 unanswered points against the Eagles, and then going on to lose 5 straight games, beating the Cowboys in dominant fashion before the bye week, only to come off the bye and lose to the Giants, then lose a heartbreaker to the Lions and feel like the season was over, even though the division was wide open, feeling hopeless after, Kyle Allen broke his ankle and you lose to Detroit with Alex Smith having a whale of a game, but still not good enough. You're 2-7 and all seems lost. And then we rattle off 4 straight, including a dominant finish against Dallas where we put up a 40-burger. And coincidentally enough, that's the only 40-burger we've put up on any opponent in the last 800 games. So it's a very memorable one. We don't score 40 very often around these parts. So to put up 40 against your arch nemesis felt damn good on Thanksgiving. That said, the biggest win of that stretch was the Steelers win. It's a memorable game. They moved it to a Monday. We were on the edge of our seat. We pulled it out. We knocked off the undefeated Steelers. We would then go on to have the defensive gem of the season against the 49ers, in which we totally dominated that game defensively because we had no offense, and won that game 23-15. That would be the end of that 4-game win streak, but it was a memorable one that would help propel us to an eventual NFC East championship and a playoff berth with a home playoff game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is what I'm going to remember about the Washington football team. That first year of persevering, overcoming, and finding a way to get it done despite all the injuries, despite going through 4 different quarterbacks starting, despite all of the different things that this team had to endure. Dwayne Haskins going out and doing this, doing that, and then having a terrible game against the Panthers and then getting cut, to this team finding a way to navigate all of the different things that, got into their way, obstacles, trials, and tribulations. This team had ups, downs, highs, lows, but they found a way to get it done and win the division. That's going to be the lasting legacy for me. But I want to hear from you guys. What will be the lasting legacy for you for the Washington football team? This, again, small stretch of time, 2 years. What'll be the thing you'll remember most about this? And it could be the high expectations after everything I just said and them falling flat on their face. That could be it too. Anyway, I'll leave that to you guys. You can comment in the comment section. I will gladly read those here in a second. Another thing that I wanted to talk about with this team is the 30th anniversary. It was yesterday, January 26th, 1992, marks the exact day that Washington won their third and final Super Bowl under the regime of one Joe Jackson Gibbs, and may he rest in peace, Jack Kent Cooke. And it's bittersweet watching the little montage they put together. They talked to Brad Edwards, safety, who had an interception in the Super Bowl against the Bills. They talked to Charles Mann, who had the big sack against Eric Kramer in the NFC Championship game against the Lions. They also talked to Gary Clark. You know Gary Clark. He's everywhere, big plays galore. He was the big play threat along with Ricky Sanders. And talked about the posse with him, Sanders and Art Monk. They talked about the Hogs. They talked about, Brian Mitchell was another guy they interviewed. He talked about the toughness of the team, and, you knew what you were getting yourself into. And, it's crazy to hear guys talk about this team in such high regard. You hear Charles Mann say, we were the gold standard, essentially. We were that team. You played the Redskins. You knew what you were getting yourself into, and it wasn't going to be pretty. And some people call that the greatest team ever. 14-2 in the regular season, 3-0 in the playoffs. None of their playoff games were close. They had 3 shutouts during the regular season. The team was dominant. If not for Dallas coming into Washington and beating them, I believe it was week 15 of the season, then they go undefeated probably, because they didn't play their starters in week 17 because they didn't have anything to play for. They had the division locked up. They had the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. So they had the first round bye. So the rest of their starters, they lost in week 17. I believe it was to Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. So the team was dominant is what it was, and it's good to hear those memories and hear those guys talk in such high regard for one another in that period of time. But it's also a constant reminder of, we have to create new memories. This is the thing I get frustrated with this organization. I don't want to forget about the past, and you hold the past up in such high regard, because what was done is something that doesn't happen very often in this league. The only team that really has eclipsed what we did were really 2 franchises. Maybe you could throw the 49ers in there too, because they had a run of Super Bowls in that same stretch that we did. But Dallas had 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. That's technically a dynasty. The Bills, or excuse me, not the Bills, the Patriots had 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. That's a dynasty. And what they've done over the last 2 decades is unprecedented and will never be touched. So, but at the time that we had performed the feat that we did, 3 Super Bowls in a decade, been to 4, but won 3 of the 4, it spoke to how dominant this organization was. But we're not that anymore. And as much as I like reliving the glory days and what I felt like when we won that Super Bowl. And again, I was a little tyke. I had no idea that this would be the last time I would feel that feeling, most fans don't care about the 30th anniversary. Unless you lived it, it doesn't resonate. Similar to the Hogs name, if you're 30 years old, all you know is losing and miserable season after miserable season, poor ownership, a terrible perception. All you know is this organization being dreadful. So, yeah, the 30-year anniversary is cool, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I love listening to those guys tell stories. But the truth of the matter is, as Ron likes to say, is that we need to do something different, something new, something we don't usually do, as I like to say on my other channel. We got to switch it up, man. We got to win something and win something big. I'm sick and tired of talking about 2005, or sick and tired of talking about 99 and what could have been. I'm sick and tired of talking about 91 and the last time we won. Sick and tired of talking about all of the things that were done in the past. That's what losers do. When you can't control the future or you can't control the outcome, that's what you do. You harken back to times when you could. Now, if you're 45, you're 50, you're 50, then you can harken back to that because you lived it. But if you're 30 and you want to talk about something that you didn't even see, you weren't even alive to see, that's loser talk. So for me, I don't really like talking about the 3 Super Bowls very often. I would love to talk about those in conjunction with another Super Bowl, a new Lombardi to add to the case. I vomit in my mouth every time we get a new guy in here, a new head coach or somebody important, a big free agent, and we're at the press conference and Dan rolls out the 3 Lombardis. Put those shits back in the goddamn case. They were eons ago. Eons ago. There are 2 different generations of people who don't even know what that trophy looks like here in Washington. Put that shit away. Don't roll them out for this occasion. Win a new one. You weren't even a part of this organization when those chips were won. Anyway, it was good to hear from the fellas. It's always good to hear from Coach Gibbs. It's always good to hear from Gary Clark, B. Mitch, and all of those guys, Charles Mann, Brad Edwards. It was nice to hear from every single one of those guys reliving, those moments that you can't take away. But at the end of the day, I want new memories and not bad ones, not the nightmares we've been putting forth year after year after year. Something that we can hold near and dear to our hearts. Not something to replace the old memories of 3 Super Bowls and 3 Lombardis with 3 different quarterbacks by one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, but something to add to it, add value. Stop taking away from that and start adding value to that. Let's lift that up with more. Let's add to it. That's the only legacy we have right now that's of any note, positively, that is. You got to go all the way back 30 years to the last time this organization was worth a damn. On the field, that is. Man, that needs to change. I think we have the right guy to change it in Ron Rivera. I really, truly do. But this ain't 1987. This ain't 1982. And this ain't 1991. You are not winning a Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks in today's age and era. It's not happening. All of those Super Bowls were achieved before free agency. That last Super Bowl Washington won was the last Super Bowl prior to free agency getting underway. And coincidentally enough, we haven't won a damn thing since. So in this new day and age in the NFL, you can't win that way. And for those of you nostalgic and want to talk about offensive line and running the football, and you do this and do that, that's not how this shit works anymore. The Titans every year have, the number 1 rushing, running back leading the league in rushing. He had 2,000 yards last year. They lost their first playoff game. He was leading the league in rushing before he got injured this year. They lost their first playoff game. Okay. There are a few teams that can get away with running the football and winning in that manner. The 49ers are one, and they might be one of one, because other teams like the Browns, for instance, last year when they got to the playoffs and they won a playoff game, it wasn't because of the strength of their run game. They had to score 43 points to outlast the Pittsburgh Steelers in that playoff game that they won last season. That wasn't because of the run game. It helps to have a run game. Don't get me wrong. but they had to throw it. And again, I always harken back to you're going to need your quarterback to make some plays at some point if you want to go far in the playoffs. Speaking of quarterbacks, my last bit of topic, I shouldn't say news because it's not news. The last topic I want to discuss before we get to your comments. I told you guys at the top of the show, there was one quarterback, and I'm guessing here. I don't have this on any authority. I haven't heard anything. There isn't anywhere I'm getting this from. I literally just plucked this out of thin air, okay? This is just me throwing a dart at the board and seeing if it sticks. But personally, I think Washington is going to go after a quarterback aggressively. I think they're going to go after several, but one in particular more aggressively than others if this guy should be made available. Because there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks that Washington inquires about. They're going to inquire about Russell Wilson. They're going to inquire about, Aaron Rodgers. They're going to inquire about Deshaun Watson. They're going to inquire about any quarterback that is available via trade. Hell, even maybe Jimmy Garoppolo. I know you don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it, okay? Keep his ass as far away from us as possible. That said, I think there's one guy that they're keeping close tabs on, and if they can get him, they feel like they could turn things around sooner rather than later, and that quarterback that I'm referencing is Derek Carr. And I think that they're ultimately going to hire a coach that keeps Derek Carr in Vegas. I think the allure of Vegas and coaching there isn't just you're in Sin City and they made it to the playoffs last year. I think one of the main attractions to Vegas is that, hey, you got a really veteran, you got a good mixture of veterans and young guys, and it's a really young team for the most part, but there's a smattering of veterans in there to keep everything even keel, so to speak. And you're led by a guy that you can win a Super Bowl with in Derek Carr. And I think that's part of the appeal of taking the job in Vegas. I don't think you take that job if there's no Derek Carr. So I know they're supposed to be interviewing Josh McDaniels of the New England Patriots. And, if all things go well there, he could be the next head coach of the Vegas Raiders. If that's the case, I expect Derek Carr to want to be a part of that. But we'll see. The last time we saw Josh McDaniels as a head coach, he came in like gangbusters. He could do no wrong. And then all of a sudden they started getting their asses kicked. And then he started trading away all of the best players on the team. And he left them desolate and destroyed. And then he headed back for New England. It was a shit show. So I would assume he's learned a lot since then. He was young and dumb back in those days. And now he's a seasoned, wily veteran of the NFL, has done it before. I would assume that the second time he'll be a little bit more diligent in how he goes about his business. What we later found out was that they were cheating, that they were videotaping the other team's practice, and they kind of knew what was coming. That's why they started. I think he started out his first season like either 5 or 6-0. I mean, it was crazy the games they were winning. I remember that like it was yesterday. And then the shit hit the fan, and they got caught videotaping other teams' practices. They couldn't do it anymore. And then I think they lost like 9 of their next 10 games or something like that. They were terrible after that. So DJ Williams tells a funny story if you haven't seen it on I Am Athlete. He tells the whole story about Josh McDaniels coming in that first year and, them thinking they were good. And then he said, man, I knew we weren't that good. Brandon Marshall actually is a part of that team as well. He was one of the guys that they traded away. If you recall, he traded away him and Jay Cutler. Anyway, I digress. I think they're going to go after Derek Carr aggressively. I think he's the perfect quarterback for what they are looking to do. I think if Ron had it his way, he would insert a veteran. I don't know. I know he would love to get a young guy that he could grow with, like he had with Cam Newton. Like, he would want to do it in that way. get a young quarterback that can grow, that can come in here and lead this team right away. But I think they know that this isn't the draft for that, potentially. Now, you never know. Hey, this thing is an inexact science. We could be sitting here shitting on this draft class of quarterbacks, and then two of these dudes turn out to be studs. Highly unlikely. I mean, seriously. We all know when we see it. Like quarterbacks, it's one of the few positions where you look at players and you're like, okay, I know this dude ain't going to be nice. You know the guys that look the part. Like they got the talent to play at a high level. But when you saw Kyler Murray, you're like, okay, yeah, he's going to be really good in the league. When you saw Joe Burrow, these guys will go number 1 overall. Okay, yeah, we see it. We know what he's about. I think a lot of us, not everyone, a lot of us dropped the ball on Justin Herbert. We knew he had talent. We knew he had everything you needed. We just didn't know what mentally he had what it took. We questioned some of his leadership skills because he's not, boisterous. We question, some of what he was capable of, because I think I'm guilty of this, and I can't speak for anyone else out there. I looked at Marcus Mariota. I said, he, to me, from a temperament standpoint, reminds me a hell of a lot of Marcus Mariota. It's like eerily similar. Like, we all know schools recruit the same type of players. Same athletes, same build, same guys that run around. You can tell what school they went to a lot of times just by their DNA makeup, because certain schools look for certain types of players. And I just felt like, okay, they had Mariota, not a, big rah-rah guy. Played in an offense that was wide open, easy throws. And I just said, something's missing with Justin Herbert. That said, had he come out the year prior, in 2019, it would have been a real discussion over who would have been number 1 overall, him or Kyler Murray. I think there would have been a real debate. I think Murray would have still gone first because the Arizona Cardinals had that pick, and Cliff Kingsbury loved him some Kyler Murray. So I think he would have been the pick anyway. But it would have been a real discussion. There was no discussion over who was number 1 once Herbert went back to school. Anyway, none of these guys look like that. There isn't a 6'6" quarterback that's 240 that has a, rocket and a cannon for a right arm and athleticism to match. There isn't one of those guys in this draft. There could be a Joe Burrow in this draft. Could be. A 6'2", 6'3" quarterback that, has some poise and moxie, has a little bit of athleticism, can make all the throws, doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but can get it wherever it needs to go. There could be one of those in this draft. Highly unlikely, but that it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think they would prefer a veteran quarterback to speed up the process. I don't think they're going to get, now keep in mind, I've said this and I'm going to continue to reiterate this. I don't think they're going to end up with any of those guys that make a ton of sense here. Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, none of those guys won't end up here. So I think they have to go to the next, rung of quarterbacks. And Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a realistic chance he's going to get released because they're going to try to trade him first. Nobody's trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. That contract, no one's trading for that. So the 49ers are probably going to have to release him. If they, in fact, do that, you add him to the mix, and I think there's a tier of quarterbacks, 4 in particular. And I assume Jameis Winston goes back to New Orleans. That's the assumption. I think Winston signed a 1-year deal to go back to New Orleans. He might have signed a multi-year deal. I'm not sure. But I believe it was a 1-year deal. There's a group of 4 quarterbacks that are going to headline this quarterback free agent class if, in fact, Jimmy Garoppolo gets released. Those names are as follows: Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and Mitchell Trubisky. Those will be the pick of the litter. That will be what Ryan Fitzpatrick Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, and Tyrod Taylor were to last year's free agency class of quarterbacks. Those will be the quarterbacks that everybody will have this mad dash to grab one of. Remember, on the very first day of free agency, we grabbed Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Bears grabbed Andy Dalton. The Dolphins grabbed Jacoby Brissett. And the Texans grabbed Tyrod Taylor. It was like musical chairs. Everybody was like, hey, I got to get mine. They reached in and grabbed theirs real quick and got out of there. And before you looked up, you're like, damn, all them quarterbacks went quick. They must have been on sale. Then you look at it and you look at the sale paper. You're like, yep. Buy one, get one half off. They went quick. No rain checks. So I think that's how it's going to go this year. And when you look at supply and demand, I talked about this already, but it's a high demand for quarterbacks and a low supply, which is why we see teams recycle quarterbacks all the time. But, I mean, when you look at it, Washington needs a quarterback. The Saints could use a quarterback. The Steelers could use a quarterback. The Texans may be in the market for a quarterback. The Panthers could be looking for a quarterback. The Broncos need a quarterback. The Giants have just expressed their loyalty to Daniel Jones and wanting to make that work. But they could easily say, hey, we could use a quarterback. But let's just take them off the list for now. The Lions are in the market for a quarterback more likely than not. They may pass this year, but eventually they're going to look to replace Jared Goff. This year could be the year they look to draft his heir apparent and just let him sit and let Goff continue to play. That said, that's 7 teams, all right? Damn near a fourth of the league. And again, depending on, what other teams are thinking, what's Indianapolis thinking after Carson Wentz wet the bed last year in week 18? Are they thinking about replacing him? I don't think so, but you never know. You never know. Vikings. I know they drafted Kellen Mond. I can't say that they don't think he's the future, but I don't think he's the future. But I'm not a Kellen Mond fan, so what do I know? You don't know. There are 7 teams for sure that are looking for a quarterback. 6 outside of Washington. 7 if you throw us in the mix. So it's a high demand and a low supply. Same thing in the draft, which is why I've seen, I haven't seen a mock draft yet. Because I don't get into that stuff. I don't care about that. But what I can tell you is people have brought those to my doorstep, and I've seen mock drafts with, 3 quarterbacks going in the top 15 picks. That could happen. It shouldn't happen because, as I mentioned, if that happens, I have an eerie feeling it's going to be like that 2011 draft where teams overdrafted quarterbacks because it's the same problem. It's the age-old problem that never goes away in this league. High demand for quarterbacks, low supply. So everybody panics and tries to go get theirs. And the draft is not the place to panic. You want to panic, do it in free agency. Just don't overspend. But everybody last year panicked and grabbed one. We grabbed Fitzpatrick. The Bears grabbed Dalton. The Dolphins grabbed Brissett. That's when you panic and grab one. Don't panic in the draft because you can make a critical error and mistake, and it'll set you back big time. That 2011 season was Cam Newton number 1 overall, and the rest of those dudes stunk. And everybody knew they stunk except the teams that traded up to get them. Jake Locker to the Titans. And we traded back, as a matter of fact, because we wanted no parts of Blaine Gabbert. So we said, hey, y'all can have at it. Knock yourself out. There's Blaine Gabbert for you. We didn't have a quarterback in the 2011. We had John Beck and Rex Grossman in 2011 in the draft. We could have used Blaine Gabbert or Jake Locker or Christian Ponder, but we knew they stunk. Mike Shanahan said, those guys are trash. We traded back. They came up, took Blaine Gabbert, and we moved back and got Ryan Kerrigan. We needed a quarterback in 2011, but we didn't take one because they stunk. And that's what you have to do. You have to have caution. You have to have patience. I know that we all want quarterbacks this year. This might not be the year. And Ron continues to tell us, hey, you don't have to get a quarterback in the first round. Translation, hey, if the board doesn't fall properly, we ain't taking the first round quarterback. Now, I think there are one or two guys that they're interested in. And how could you not be interested in Kenny Pickett? Because I think he's the best of this group. So how can you not be interested in him? After that, it's anybody's guess, who the team might be interested in, honestly. I think they're going to ultimately take a quarterback in the second round. And if they do that, I think it's going to be coupled with a veteran quarterback. And you're probably not going to like some of the options. I've already laid them out for you. It's going to be one of those dudes. And it's probably going to be a rookie to go along with him. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys have to say. And I'll be putting that stream up here shortly. We're going to call it Rebrand and Breakfast. That'll be the name of the stream to reveal the new name. Rebrand and Breakfast. Bring your breakfast. I'll bring my breakfast. It'll be early as hell in the morning, and we'll just sit here and chop it up and watch the Today Show. I'll probably have it on mute, but I'll be keeping my eye on it. Can't put it on mute because then I won't know when they're going to actually reveal the name. But we'll watch it together. Rebrand and Breakfast. That's what we'll call it. So this is the last thing, I promise, and then we'll get to your comments. For those of you who are members of the MOBB or on Patreon, you will be getting your first sneak peek of the Draft Prospects 101 series. I will be releasing the first episode tomorrow featuring quarterback Kenny Pickett. So if you're a mob member or a member on Patreon, you'll have access to that tomorrow. For the rest of you, you'll get it on Saturday. If you're a member of the mob or Patreon, be on the lookout. Probably I'd say the second week of February, be on the lookout for the first list, positional ranking list that I'll put out. You guys will have access to that. And then it's going to be rapid after that, because the quarterbacks take the most time. And then after that, I'm going to be speeding through the rest of these positions. And then I'll double back and make sure that I, dot all my I's, cross all my T's. But be on the lookout for that as early as the second week of February. I should be done with all the quarterbacks and have them ranked. And really, it seems like it's only about 8, maybe even 9 at best draftable quarterbacks. I think that the list is probably about 7 strong, after you get past, the first 4 or 5 guys that we all know about, the Kenny Pickett's, Matt Corral, the Malik Willis's of the world. Then you get the Carson Strongs, the Bailey Zapps of the world. Once you get past some of those guys and the Sam Howells, I think that's 6 guys that I just named. It gets pretty slim after that. Not many more quarterbacks, maybe 1 or 2 after that. So I'll be able to run through those within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll really be able to hit the ground running. Because like I said, I can speed through a lot of these positions, and it doesn't take as much film, watching with these other positions. Quarterback is so unique because it's a much larger sample size, and you have to do your due diligence to be able to try to analyze these quarterbacks and have a thorough opinion on them. You can't just speed through it, watch 1 or 2 games and be done. It's a full, especially for a guy like Kenny Pickett, for instance. Guy played 5 years. 4 full seasons of college football. It's a lot of tape to comb through and a lot of things that you have to look at to see the maturation and the growth over his career. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. So keep your eyes peeled. If you're a mob member or you're on Patreon, tomorrow at noon, you will be getting access to Draft Prospects 101 episode number 1. And away we go with the draft coverage. So Let's get to the comment section and let's get to your comments. Metaphor kicks the night off. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, 6 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Yay. Yay. Trick or treat. Give me something good to eat. If you don't, smell my feet. I got a feeling that I'm going to feel pretty cool with whatever they do. But I got a feeling a lot of you are going to have something to say. It's going to be really interesting. I hope you guys join me on, if you're not doing anything, if you're doing something, it's cool. But if you're not doing anything and you want to come kick it and share in the whole bask in the glow of this reveal, we'll be here. And I got a feeling a lot of you are going to have something to say. I mean, strong opinions, one way or another, about the rebranding of this team. This is the name. This is it. This is what you guys have been clamoring for since the name was changed to the Washington Football Team. This is what you've been waiting for. And now we are less than a week away. And I don't think everyone's going to be excited about it. We'll see what happens. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy John Perez writes, I don't have to explain, but I will anyway. Let's see what he's talking about. We need either Russ or Watson, or we have to go and get a rookie in the first round of the draft. I will hate it if we get some chump like Jimmy G or Trubisky. Well, I'm here to tell you, prepare yourself mentally, John. I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen, but there's a high probability that we don't get any of those guys, because keep in mind, if you are Russell Wilson, let's just start with Russ since you named him first, and you decide, I want out of Seattle, and Seattle says, you know what? I think it's best if all parties just go in different directions. You're right. I think a clean break is the best thing for all of us, all parties involved. So tell you what, you give us a short list of teams you'd be willing to be traded, because he's got a no trade clause, that you'd be willing to be traded to, and we'll get on the phone and see if we can't work something out. I can assure you the list that he gives them will not have the Washington Football Team on it. I can all but guarantee that. Keep in mind, and as JP said, I shouldn't have to explain this, but I will. Keep in mind that last offseason, when he was frustrated, made the comments publicly on the Dan Patrick Show, there was pushback from the Seahawks organization, and there was this glimmer of hope for teams like us that he may be traded. Remember, his people rolled out a list. They said, here, we're not asking and we're not requesting a trade, but should you feel like trading us, these are the teams that Russell Wilson would like to be considered to be traded to. And he read off a list: New Orleans and Dallas and San Francisco and Vegas. And I think the Giants were on it. I'm not sure. Nowhere to be found was the Washington Football Team. Mind you, that was coming off of winning the division and having the trajectory arrow pointing upward. Now, we're coming off of a disappointing 7-win season. That was a exciting 7-win season. This is a disappointing 7-win season. The arrow is pointing down, and our organization continues to be a dumpster fire. As a matter of fact, today, I read that there will be a committee meeting for those who have something to say that were harassed or mistreated by this organization. They're having a committee meeting the day after the new rebrand. How about that? You get a new name and you get some of the old steaming pile of shit dropped right on the new name. Ding! So why would he want to come here? He doesn't. Same goes for Watson. Same goes for Rodgers. There will be ample different opportunities for these guys to comb through. For instance, if Aaron Rodgers decides he wants to leave Green Bay, and I don't think he's going anywhere, but he could decide he wants to leave Green Bay. Guess what? His offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, just got the job in Denver. Wouldn't it make more sense for Aaron Rodgers to go to Denver than to come to Washington? Denver's got a much better roster than we do. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, we're not getting any of these guys because we're not a preferred destination. Let me say that again for some of you hard of hearing, or some of you who don't want to hear, or some of you who are too far in the back to hear it. I'm going to say it again and a little louder. We aren't getting any of those guys. The Russell Wilsons, the Deshaun Watsons, the Aaron Rodgers of the world. We're not getting any of those guys because we are not a preferred destination. Now, with Derek Carr, on the other hand, he may be like, you know what? I want to go somewhere where I'm appreciated, because every year, and the reason why I came up with the Derek Carr scenario is because I listened to his brother, David Carr, talk about his brother being somewhat frustrated with every year hearing his name in trade rumors, or the Raiders are looking to move on from his brother. He's sick and tired of starting over with the Raiders. He said Derek's been there 7 or 8 years and he wants to win. Last year, while it was motivating, and left a bad taste in his mouth because John Gruden was his guy. Okay. Gruden believed in Carr. Carr believed in Gruden. And now that he's gone, hell, David even said at one point, his brother threw out, and I think this was just, people get emotional like Carl Thomas. I'm emotional. They get emotional, say shit out of their mouth that they don't really mean. He even threw around the R word, retirement, at one point. He's not retiring. But that's how he was feeling when John Gruden retired, when he resigned, I should say. So they got to hire the right guy in Vegas, or else he'll want out. I surmise they're going to hire the right guy and they'll patch things up with Derek Carr, but he's the guy that I think they would go after. If he's as frustrated as his brother says, and if they do something that he doesn't really agree with, they hire a guy that doesn't jibe with what he feels like the direction of the program should be, he may want out. Now, the Raiders don't have to oblige, just like the Packers didn't oblige last year and said, okay, you want out? We're not trading you, so what are you going to do? Just like the Texans did with Deshaun Watson. You want out. We're not trading you. What are you going to do? We'll see. But we're not a preferred destination. So I said all of that to say this, JP. The likelihood is that you, my friend, will have to get over the fact that more likely than not, this organization will, in fact, sign one of those quarterbacks that you want to stay far away from. I'm right there with you on Jimmy G. Want no parts of him. I wouldn't mind kicking the tires on Trubisky, but I know that's a road that leads to nowhere. I agree. We're on the same page. I don't want him either. I'm more likely to be okay with Trubisky than I am with Jimmy G. But or Mariota. I would be more apt to take a Mariota or a Trubisky over a Jimmy G. That said, I don't want any of those guys, but they're probably going to do something. Keep in mind, we only got one quarterback on the roster right now. That's Taylor Heineke. I envision them adding 2 more guys to that quarterback room. One may be a veteran and the other may be a rookie. One may be a guy that's already been here in Kyle Allen and they add a rookie. Or it could be a veteran and that's it. There is no rookie. All signs point to a veteran, placeholder, and a rookie. And you want a first-round rookie? I was thinking more along the lines of second. But we'll see. Now, won't we? All it takes is one team to fall in love. And if we're the team that falls in love, we may do whatever it takes to move up and get a guy. Somebody, and I'm telling you right now, It's not going to go chalk. Somebody's going to move up to draft a quarterback or two in this draft, and they'll be moving up in front of 11. It won't be, behind us. It'll be moving in front of teams like Washington, potentially like Denver. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to have to really be sure that we love a guy, and I don't think they are in love with any of these quarterbacks. I think they really like one or two of these guys. I don't think they love, and I don't blame them. So we will see. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Luck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Luck writes, I'm Muslim, bro. I can't be wearing no little piggy on my shirt. Again, I mean, everybody's got their reasons. I'm vegan. I don't give a shit about, pigs. As long as it's not going in my body, I'm fine. But I get where you're coming from. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not alone in that. I've had people, say, look, my girl won't wear anything with a pig on it, a shirt with a pig, or any, merch with a pig on it. Like, that's just unbecoming of her. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's not that big of a deal to me, but I mean, I get it. You don't want to walk around with a pig on your shirt. That's cool. I don't think they are going to name the team, something where the mascot is a hog. You know what I'm saying? Even if it was some variation of hog, like warhog or warthog or something like that, they may come up with some other imagery that's not a pig. You know what I'm saying? But, in all actuality, they know what you're going to shorten it to, hogs. This is the reason why I don't think it's going to be hogs too, just to add to that. So I left this out and I meant to say this. Charles Mann was on with the Junkies. I think it was yesterday because it was the 30th anniversary. And during the interview, they tried to get him, because he knows the new name. They tried to get him to spill the beans on the name. And, he's a smart guy. He's savvy. He knew how to dance around it. But what he did share was that he wasn't too thrilled with the name they chose. If they would have chose any variation of hog, don't you think? He said not only was he not overly thrilled, he said a lot of the veterans, the alumni, let's call them the alumni, they weren't too thrilled with the name. Well, that kind of just rules out hogs, doesn't it? Or any variation of it, because they would love it. That's their identity. So they didn't love, he said a lot of the alumni didn't love the new name. So that makes me think it didn't have anything to do with hogs. But I told you, I'm not moving off the spot. Hogs, it is for me, some variation of it. But I'm leaning towards more so Commanders at this point. But, we'll see what happens. But you're not alone. You're not the only person that doesn't want to be walking around with some kind of hog or pig merch. Let's see. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Rob Yu. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, sup, Luke? Sup, Rob Yu? Says, Jay Winston in short sample size really took care of ball last year. Chances he comes here if we don't get first option. I think he wants to stay in New Orleans now. Obviously, there's no more Sean Payton, so that could change the dynamic a bit. But if the Saints are smart, they won't ruffle the feathers and rattle the cage too much there. I think, I talked about this on the podcast, and my guy Hoodie Jube provided some great insight as a Saints fan, and he said what he would like to see them do is just promote defensive coordinator Dennis Allen, who has been a head coach in this league with the Oakland Raiders once upon a time, to head coach. And, his name has been bandied about for years because he's done such a great job with the Saints defense, of him getting a head coaching job at some point, down the road with a different organization. Well, no one thought he would be getting it in New Orleans because they didn't expect Sean Payton to be gone. But now that Payton's gone, Dennis Allen probably wants that job. He's got a great defense. He already knows the personnel. And so all he's got to do is find a way to fix the offense. And really that would require them finding a quarterback. And maybe Jameis Winston, he believes in Winston and thinks he's that guy. Either way, Winston will be an option. I think he probably more so than anything else wants to go back to New Orleans, especially if they keep that staff intact. Hoodie Jube talked about potentially promoting, one of their positional coaches to offensive coordinator and, things of that nature. Another defensive, positional coach to D coordinator to take his spot. Also bringing back Joe Brady, who, was once an assistant on that Saints staff before he went to LSU, lit it up, and then got the offensive coordinator job in Carolina, bringing him back on as an assistant to help with the offense. So there are a number of different solutions that they can go with. And if they keep it intact that way with guys and coaches that Jameis Winston is familiar with, and they're familiar with him, and they're all comfortable with one another, and they're comfortable with the idea of bringing Jameis back, I just think he goes back to New Orleans personally. But we'll see. As far as if he were available and would I be interested? Yes and no. I'm not the biggest Jameis Winston fan because I already know what I liken him to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I truly do. He's a gamer. He'll do everything he can to try to help you win a game. But he's also going to ultimately throw you out of a couple of games as well. He's going to make some ridiculous throws, and he's going to throw for, anywhere from 25 to 30 touchdowns because he's a gunslinger. But he's also going to throw for anywhere from 13 to 19 interceptions because in 1 year he threw 30. He was part of the 30-30 club. So with Jameis Winston, yeah, the turnovers were slightly down, but to me it was the same Jameis Winston. The sample size, as you admitted, was small, right? If he had played the entire season, I think we would have looked up and Jameis Winston would have led the league in interceptions. I truly believe that. So we'll never know. I'm good on Jameis Winston. I'd pass on him personally. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You got another one here from Luck. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Luck. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, if it's Commanders, I'm going to find Dan's parking spot. I've had so many people tell me, if it's fill in the blank name, I'm done. I'm quitting this team. All I do is laugh at those people. I don't even respond when I hear that. Okay. I mean, to each its own. But, and these are the people that will be the loudest on February 2nd, 2022. Okay. The 2/2/22. These are the people that are going to be the loudest. The people that can't stand the name, think it's a disgrace, should have never changed from Redskins. This is a farce of an organization. I'm leaving, I'm out, and I'm not coming back. Here's the thing. Heard that before. As a wise woman once said, heard it all before. I heard it all before. And you know what always remedies that? Winning. Now, we haven't done a lot of that here. So those people that said I'm out, a lot of them haven't come back yet, right? But I guarantee the first season we have where we're 9-3 through 13 weeks of ball, and we got a big game with Dallas coming up. They're 8-4. We're 9-3. And the winner of this game, more likely than not, is going to have a stranglehold on the division. And these are two really good teams that are going to make the playoffs. And we got ourselves a quarterback, and we're going to be in this thing for the foreseeable future. They'll be right back on board. Name or no name. Like it or don't like it. Which always brings me back to my original point of how I feel. I really don't give a shit what the name is. I just want to win because at the end of the day, that's all anybody ever cares about. Yes, we would love this organization to have a much better culture because we're decent human beings, okay? So if you're a decent human being, you want other human beings to be treated fairly, which then trickles down to the rest of the organization, and our organization is viewed as a really safe and organized and just overall generally good place to work. You want that to be the workplace of the team that you root for. But you know what? All of that stuff only is uber important because we suck. and the culture is toxic, and our owner is the worst. So those things become even more highlighted. They become magnified. Trust me, the Patriots are not a well-run organization from the standpoint of ethics. They've been cheaters. Their owner has been at massage parlors, and they're not the most well-run organization in terms of keeping their nose clean. They've cheated multiple times. Guess what? Nobody cares because they're winning. Now, you could say, well, that's more of an ethical thing, not more of a, people being disrespected and mistreated thing. Touche. I'll say touche to that. But wrong is wrong. They're different, obviously, very different degrees of wrong, but wrong is wrong. The reason we talk more about our situation and less about theirs is because we suck. And they've won 5 Super Bowls in the last 10 years. So it's easy to sweep shit under the rug. I said all of that to say this. If we win, all of this shit becomes irrelevant. And that's how I want it to be. I want all of that extra ancillary background noise to be irrelevant and the football product to stand tall and loud. But the only way that happens is if you win. Let's see. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, my main memory of Washington football team is Heineke's leap versus the Bucks. That'll probably be the image that will be synonymous with this whole stretch. I firmly believe that. I think there are a couple of iconic, not necessarily iconic. Iconic is too strong of a word. I think there are a couple of time capsule photos that you put it in the ground and you bury it, and 20 years later we dig it up, pull open the time capsule, and I think there are 2 photos in particular. Can anybody guess what the other one is? One is obviously the Heineke diving for the pylon. Can anybody guess what I think the other one is? And I may be missing something. I'm trying to think, make sure I'm not missing anything noteworthy. I don't think I am. I don't think I missed anything that stands out to me. And it's not like a massive moment in a game or something. Don't overthink this. But what's the other thing that I could be thinking about that would be something that I would put in a time capsule? I'll let you guys come up with ideas on that one. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Trev writes, the Washington football team legacy is the 21 season, with the last time we had hopes of back-to-back playoffs. Toast, Lou. Here's to another 10 years of 91 reruns. See you there. I so hope. I am not, first of all, I'm not toasting to that. I am not cheering to that because I don't want that. And neither do you, but you're doing the thing that most of us as fans, and I'm included in that we do. We set the bar extremely low so that we don't allow ourselves to be exposed to disappointment. Okay. And some of you have no problems getting smacked in the face every year. You do it every year. You get frustrated, and then you restart the cycle over again. So some of you get pissed off when this team underachieves. They win a couple of games in a row. You get back on board. And then the next year you're like, hey, we're going 11-5. And I'm like, I don't think we're going 11-5. We haven't won more than 10 games since 1991. I don't think that's what we're going to do. But you're like, nope, 11-5 this year. Okay, if you say. And then when we go 7-9, you get pissed off. And then next year we get some free agents. We get a guy here or there. And you're like, hey, 12-4. You went up a game. but we only won 7 games last year. What would make you think there's a 5-game improvement? We got a different schedule this year. Okay. If you say, and then you get disappointed when we end up 7-8-1, and then you get pissed off, and then you get excited again. Really good draft. Got a new quarterback. Hey, this is the year. 11-5 again. And then we go 8-8. So I'm hoping that it's different this time. And so for you, the disappointment of not getting over that hump of back-to-back postseason years is the thing that you'll remember with this brief time in history for this organization. And that's fair. That's fair. There were a lot of expectations for this 2021 season. I told you guys that you should have tapered those expectations, but I get it. I get it. Thank you for the super chat, Trevor Patch. Got one here from Nick Caps. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Nick Caps. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I was able to go to the game in person to watch the Washington football team lose to the Dallas Cowboys. So that'll be the thing that you remember. That will be the lasting legacy for you, is that in person you were able to watch this team stink up the joint for 3.5 quarters before coming to life and making a ball game of it late, but still falling short 27-20 to the Dallas Cowboys. So that'll be Nick's lasting memory, and that was his first game ever. So that is a hell of a memory, Nick. Definitely. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Washington football team equals development of Logan, Cole, and Terry. So for him, it's the development of guys that he believes are going to be a part of the foundation of this team as we move forward into the new rebrand and the new rollout. Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin, and Cole Holcomb. And I think that, Terry definitely is a guy that we've seen continue to blossom, but I think Logan Thomas is particularly interesting because he got here the first year that the name changed, and we had zero hope for the tight end position. Most of us. I can't speak for all of you because some of you were saying, hey, this Logan Thomas dude is legit. I'm telling you, he's a beast. But me, I was like, look, until I see it, I don't believe it. So he was huge that first year in 2020. Cole and Terry were both here prior to the name changing. And we both saw flashes from those guys in that rookie season back in 2019. So I get the development. They continue to grow as football players, and we're starting to see the best of those guys. But they were here prior to that. So I think with Logan, it's a bit more apt for Logan because he got here with the name changing. So he's a little bit more synonymous with that. But that's Dejan's legacy, is seeing those guys continue to flourish and grow and develop. Jay Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, not the same, but 2020 season was like 2012 for me. So you're right. It wasn't the same because we didn't have what we thought was a franchise quarterback in 2020. We did in 2012. We thought this was the beginning of a beautiful relationship and love affair with a quarterback that was going to be ours and our guy for the next 10 years plus. And that wasn't 4 straight. That was like 7 straight. I think we were 3-6, and then we rattled off 7 straight. 2012 was different. That season was magical. This didn't give me those vibes. I can honestly say that the 4-game win streak this year reminded me of the 4-game win streak last year because we weren't really scoring a bunch of points. You know, the one last year or 2020, we had the one outburst against Dallas. And really, that was really self-inflicted and aided and abetted by the Cowboys. You know, they went for it on a fake punt that gave us great field position. We scored off of that. Obviously, the Montez Sweat interception, run back for a touchdown. It just started to rain at the end of that game, and it was an avalanche. They couldn't stop it. But outside of that, I think we scored 20. I think we beat the Bengals 20-9. We beat the Steelers 17-14, I think. 20-17, something like that. And we beat the 49ers 23-15. I mean, we weren't setting the world on fire scoring points. Whereas back in 2012, we was lighting the scoreboard up. You can get a 30-piece on your head quick, fast, and in a hurry. And it didn't matter if it was Kirk Cousins or it was Robert Griffin III. You can get a 30 spot. We had Kirk Cousins on the road at Cleveland, and he put a 30 spot up with Leonard Hankerson and crew. Like, you could get it any way you wanted it back in 2012. You know, we put up 30-some-odd points on the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I think we went to Philadelphia, put 30 spot on their head. Like, we were scoring points that season. We were a prolific offense. So this didn't feel like 2012 to me. But I get it. You know, you start winning, you start having those warm and fuzzies. I never felt like what we were doing was sustainable because we were barely scoring and we were holding teams down and we weren't playing the best of competition. You know, the Tampa Bay game, that one felt good. The Carolina game felt good too because we scored 27 points in that game. And the Panthers were coming off of destroying the Cardinals, and this was Camsford. That one felt good. But the Vegas and the Seahawks ones, those felt fraudulent. Like, okay, that was more about Seattle not scoring and Russell Wilson being rusty and them not looking good and him not seeing the field well, and less about what we were doing. And in the Raiders game, we sleptwalked through that game, and so did the Raiders. And it was just one of those games you wake up in the fourth quarter and you go, wow, it's a 2-point game. And if their safety, Trayvon Merrick, can catch, we lose that game. You know, you were one play away from losing that game. So it never felt like 2020, but to each its own. So your legacy will be that the 2020 season for you. Oh, and I just ran down the whole 2021. You're talking about 2020. Again, that season felt good, but I kind of felt the same way I felt about this season. Like, this isn't sustainable because you're not scoring enough points. Our offense, remember, we had one of the worst offenses in football in 2020. Just keep that in mind. Like, you're not going to win in the playoffs scoring 17 points, which is the shit that we was doing. You know, what did we score against Tampa? 19? What were we scoring that game? 19, right? I think the score was 27-19. We were down 8. We lost by 8, I believe. Yeah, I mean, you can't win scoring that kind of shit, man. Like, you're not going to beat anybody doing that. What was it, 31-23, something like that. You're not going to beat anybody doing that. And that's what we were doing in 2020. Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. And once again, Derek B, I want to thank you and your wife for your generosity. Thank you for the gifts. Wife and the kids are very appreciative. Tell your wife we said thank you, and I'm telling you thank you as well. Derek B writes, Ron picked VM over Cam. If GM and NC trust Ron to pick QB. So Ron picks VM over Cam if he's the GM in Carolina with the Panthers. I don't think so. I don't think so, because they needed a quarterback. So when you're in that situation, you got to take the quarterback. I think Ron's first order of business when he got to Carolina is we got to draft a quarterback. So I think quarterback was always going to be the pick. And there were no quarterbacks that were remotely even close to Cam Newton in that draft class. So I don't know who the hell VM is, but Cam would have been the pick back in 2011, if that's what you're referring to. Do I trust Ron? I think the real question here is, do you trust Ron? Do any of us trust Ron to find the quarterback of the future? That's a real question, because he never actually had to do that. And that's the thing that we get hung up on a lot of times, because when a coach has a ton of success with one guy and they don't have to identify talent at that position, are they able to then do that when the time comes? New Orleans is a great example. They had Drew Brees for all that time. They didn't have to identify any other talent at quarterback. Now Drew Brees is gone and Sean Payton is like, yo, I'm out. I don't got time for this shit. You look at the Patriots. Mac Jones fell into their lap. I mean, it couldn't have been scripted any better for them. But they've always, one thing I got to credit the Patriots, they've always done a really good job of developing quarterbacks behind Brady. That's how they were able to continue to trade these guys. Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Cassell, Ryan Mallett. The list goes on and on. Billy Ho. These were all guys that were disciples under Brady in New England that ended up getting starting opportunities elsewhere because the Patriots developed them. Whereas the Steelers couldn't develop a quarterback to save their life. They couldn't identify him and they couldn't develop him. So do I trust Ron? I've already said this. Martin Mayhew took Matthew Stafford, number 1 overall, back in whatever year draft that was, the 2009 draft, I believe it was. Took Matthew Stafford in the 2009 draft. That wasn't hard. He sat there and he said, well, we could have taken some of the other quarterbacks that were available that year. We could have took Josh Freeman, and he named like 2 or I think he said Mark Sanchez was in that draft class. No, you weren't. You weren't going to take any of those guys. None of those guys were better than Matthew Stafford. They weren't even close. That wasn't even a discussion anybody was having. Matthew Stafford was a badass at Georgia. Nobody's talking about, well, maybe we should take Mark Sanchez. Maybe we should take Josh Freeman out of Washington. Hell no. So that wasn't a hard decision. Still got to pick the right guy. Yeah, well, when you've got the number 1 overall pick, it's not hard to pick the right guy. Generally, in this league, teams get the number 1 overall pick right. Generally speaking, not always. We've seen some, number 1 overall picks that flamed out in this league, but when's the last time we've seen that happen? It doesn't happen very often. You got to go back to, somewhere in the early 2000s to see somebody, flub the number 1 overall pick. Generally, it's a quarterback or it's an edge rusher or somebody like that. Rarely is it any other position but quarterback or edge rusher. Those are the most important positions in football, along with tackle and corner. So if it's not a quarterback, it's usually an edge rusher. And most of those guys have been good. You rarely see a guy don't get to his second contract out of the league in 3 years. Anyway, Martin Mayhew and Ron, I said I was going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I want to see. I think the jury's out on whether these guys can identify quarterback talent and develop it. I'm not sure if they can or not. Cam Newton came into the league already packaged with talent. All they had to do was just roll the ball out and say, all right, Cam, go play ball. Go do your thing. I want to see what they're able to do and this is the perfect draft to do that, to identify what they're capable of doing when you don't have the guy with the ridiculous size, athleticism, arm talent. The guy that's basically a cheat code coming into the league. Can you take a guy that's got some talent? He's not talentless, but he doesn't look like an elite quarterback. Can you take that guy and turn him into one? Can you identify who that guy is in this draft class? If they're able to pick a guy out of this draft class and turn him into not even elite, but just a good NFL quarterback that we feel confident in that we can win. And let's say that guy is like on the Dak Prescott level. Not elite, but he's really good and you can win a Super Bowl with him. Then that's when you say, okay, these guys know what the hell they're doing. Because the Cowboys took Dak in the 3rd or 4th round. You really got to know what the hell you're doing to take a guy after the 2nd round. And again, I've already said this. I'll say it again. Usually in the 2nd round, first of all, there are no guarantees, and no matter what round you take a guy in. But as you go further and further into a draft, it's less and less likely that you're going to hit on a quarterback. I would say that the hit rate on a quarterback in the 1st round is probably 40%. After the 1st round, you go to the 2nd round, I think that number probably dips to about 20%, maybe even 15%. And then it might even be lower than that. I might say it might be 10. Okay, 10%. Let's go with 15. And then I would just lump the rest of the draft together. Now, you know what? Day two. So 3rd round, I'd say that number drops to 9%. And then the rest of the draft, day 3, rounds 4 through 7, you got a 2% chance of finding a quarterback. That's how I view it. If you don't take a quarterback in the 1st round, your percentage exponentially decreases that you're going to find the guy. We'll see if they can find the guy. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Dejan writes, Andale, mama eons, ogo. Oh, man. New memories now, he says. Andale, mommy, eons, ago. New memories now. I see what you did there. Yeah, we need some new memories, man. I'm with you. Andale, mommy, eons, ago. New memories now. I'm with you. We need some new memories, man. We need some new memories. I'm not trying to get rid of the old memories. I just want to add some new ones. Like it's almost like I was watching Inside the NBA like 2 weeks ago. And Charles Barkley was about to tell the same story that I had already heard him tell like 15 times. And finally Shaq was like, bro, how many times you going to tell the same goddamn story? We already heard this story. I can tell you what you about to say. And Charles just looked at him and said, hey, shut up. Let me tell my story, all right? Anyway, and he proceeds to tell the Greg Popovich story again. And we've already heard this story about San Antonio and how he knew when this guy was able to do this and that. And that's kind of how I feel with the organization continuing to bring it up. Now, the 30-year anniversary is significant. So they should have been recognized. There should have been a video. There should have been people talked to. All of that needed to happen because it's 30 years ago to the day. But we've done this when it was 27 years ago. We've done it when it was 23 years ago. We've done it when it was 29 years ago. Every year this time we do this. And the only reason we continue to have to do that is because we don't have anything new to reference. So you have to go all the way back to 91. New memories now. I'm with you. Michael White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, if you're picking for Washington at 11, Nakobe Dean or Pickett, or both are there, who would you pick? I'd take the quarterback, and I wouldn't think twice. If Kenny Pickett is there at 11, I'd take him. He's not going to be there at 11. Trust me. If he's there at 11, I'd take him if I were Washington. Now, again, you got to do your due diligence. You got to love the kid. You got to sit down. You got to be able to ask the kid the tough questions. He's got to give you the kind of responses you're looking for. You got to fall in love with, Kenny Pickett, the person, Kenny Pickett, the player. You got to love the tape. You got to love his poise, his moxie. You got to love everything, because when you draft a quarterback, you're not just drafting the guy on the field. You're drafting the guy off the field, as we found out with Dwayne Haskins. He has to be the right type of guy to lead your franchise, because that's what quarterbacks are in this league. They are demanded more of because of their stature and what it means to hold that position on a team. You may not want to be the leader of a team. You don't have a choice when you are a quarterback. It is an obligation to wear a C on your chest after your third year of starting if you are a quarterback. You really should be doing it after your first or second year. So if they fall in love with Kenny Pickett and he's there at 11, pull the trigger. I don't think you even hesitate. The problem is Kenny Pickett is not going to be there at 11. And so and then that's when you get into the territory of, okay, do you love any of these other dudes to pull the trigger? And I say the answer is no. To me, and again, I've got homework to do. So I can't tell you definitively right now. I'm just telling you, after watching what I've watched on all these quarterbacks, and I haven't watched any Carson Strong, okay? You're not taking him at 11, though. Okay, I haven't watched a lot of, Bailey Zapp. I've watched a little bit of Bailey Zapp. I'm up at 12:30 at night. Western Kentucky's on, CBS Sports. Yeah, I've done that once or twice before. So at the end of the day, you're not taking Bradley Zapp at 11, okay? It's either Howell or it's Corral or it's Malik Willis. And I don't think any of those guys are worthy of the 11th pick in the draft. All it takes is one, though. And I'm telling you, somebody's going to trade up for Kenny Pickett. If somebody that has a pick already doesn't take him, somebody else will trade up for him. He doesn't make it out of the top 10. We sit at 11. He won't make it out of the top 10. I firmly believe that. I wouldn't be shocked if there are multiple quarterbacks. And I said this at the top. I don't know if I finished my thought. I ramble from time to time. I've seen mock drafts where 3 quarterbacks. I did say that. I remember saying that. 3 quarterbacks go in the top 15 picks. That'd be asinine. But it could happen. We'll see. But I definitely take the quarterback, Kenny Pickett. All right. Got a super chat here from King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, King of the North, writes, if Ron's plan is to stay the course and there is no big moves for better coaches or a top QB, then we all know we aren't contending for anything. Why can't we at least get a new D-line coach? Shaking my head. Excuse me. If it's not broken, Ron's not going to fix it. And the only way you can fix something is if you acknowledge that it's broken. He may not think the defensive line is broken. He may think if you just do it the way we coach you to do it, we'll be fine. And the best example of that is when Montez Sweat and Chase Young were out of the lineup and you had a couple of Johnny do-gooders in there, guys that don't have the talent, that can't go off script and freelance and do their own thing, but have to follow the D-line coaches, scheme to a T. The defense, quote unquote, worked better for whatever that's worth. I'm not one of those guys that buys into that, but I don't think he's going to get rid of the defensive line coach because he doesn't see anything wrong with what Sam Mills III is doing. Okay. Unless there is a clear drop off where it's easily traceable to the coach, I don't see anything happening there. So I don't see it happening. I don't have anything else to add to that. I don't see him getting rid of any of his coaches. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Rob U writes, you took me back last week to the 2020 draft with Winfield Jr. He was my favorite safety in the draft, but we traded that second round pick the year before. And that's kind of what I've been saying, is that, in particular with the safety, which is, because a lot of people keep bringing up the Notre Dame safety and, wanting to take him at 11. And I already, he's not going to be there at 11. I've already said that. Like, talents like him generally don't last. And in order to get a guy like him to fall down the draft board, you have to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks go, or 2 or 3 tackles go, or 2 or 3 receivers. And this isn't that type of draft. There aren't 2 or 3 top flight receivers. There isn't a tight end to sneak in like last year's draft, sneak in the top 5 like Kyle Pitts. There aren't 2 or 3 receivers like we had last year that snuck in. There aren't 2 or 3 corners that are going to sneak in this year in the top 10. There aren't 2 or 3 tackles that could go in like we saw back in 2020 with Tristan Wirfs and Jedrick Wills and Mekhi Becton. They're just, and Andrew Thomas. There just isn't that kind of group. You may get a tackle, maybe 2, because they get pushed up. There is 1 corner, Derek Stingley Jr. And then, after that, there are no receivers. There are no running backs. There will be edge rushers. 2 of them will probably go in the top 5, more likely than not. But again, if you don't have that quarterback to go, a guy like Kyle Hamilton just won't be around. He's not. You're going to have some other positions that are more held in higher regard in the league come up. And those positions are quarterback. Those positions are corner, edge rusher, receiver. These are the positions that would push down tackle. These are the positions that would push down a safety. But I don't think there's enough of those. As we get deeper into this process, we may, find out that, hey, there are enough of these. But I said that to say this: you don't have to get a safety at 11 to find a good one. You know what I'm saying? There are good football players all over the place at the safety position, at the linebacker position, at the guard position. You don't have to get these guys in the first round. You just got to be able to identify talent and know who fits your scheme and what you're looking for in a player. And Antoine Winfield was one of those types of guys. But again, that's what happens when you make mistakes and then you have to cover your tracks. If Daniel Snyder doesn't come down, take over the draft room and select Dwayne Haskins and then feel bad about it and then have to give the draft guys what they want, which was Montez Sweat, and trade back into the first round, we have that second round pick. And maybe we do take a guy like Michael Pittman Jr. or another junior in Antoine Winfield. But instead, we don't have a second round pick. We just, those are the things that when people say, well, what has Daniel Snyder done other than want to win? Shit like that. Contaminating Robert Griffin III and making him feel like he was bigger than any member of the staff. These are the things he's done, enabling guys, making guys feel like they're bigger than the rest of the team. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. JP, my guy John writes, I'm telling you, Lou, Matt Corral or Malik Willis needs to be our pick at 11. And I'll let you know if I can see that. I'll really, truly. I've watched Matt Corral. I like Matt Corral. I don't love Matt Corral. I like him. I don't love him. In order to take a guy at 11, you must love him. I don't love Matt Corral. If you're taking a first-round quarterback, you must love him. You can like a second or a third-round quarterback. But if you're going to take a guy in the first round, you can't like him. You got to love him. I don't think I love Matt Corral. For one, I don't love his size. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. We just went through a Taylor Heineke. I don't want to go through that again. I'm not looking for another small, diminutive quarterback. I mean, if he's a beast, he's a beast. Kyler Murray's a small quarterback. He's a beast. Russell Wilson's a small quarterback. He's a beast. I don't give a shit how tall you are. You got to make me forget that you're not 6'4", 6'5". He doesn't make me forget that he's 6'1", barely 6'1". So, and he did not play in a pro style offense. So he's one of those dudes that he was in a spread, a lot of RPO, very heavy on the RPO. I can't wait to watch his footwork and see all of the things that he's doing to see if there's work that has to be done with him. So we'll see. And Malik Willis, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done with him. Well, I got to watch the tape, though. I don't think either one of those dudes are worthy of 11 right now, as it stands right now. That could change. That could change. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Rob you. Thank you for the super chat, Rob you. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, thoughts on Desmond King and Jabril Peppers? Desmond King was a guy that I was semi-high on when he was still a member of the Chargers, when he was a return man as a punt returner and doubled as a corner. And he was like, hey, man, corner / safety. He was a nickel. Hey, there's some value here. And he could be a potential dominant punt returner. Then he got traded to the Titans. He really didn't do all that much. Then he went to, I think he was a Texan this past year. And he was okay. I'm not the biggest Desmond King guy anymore. That ship has sailed for me. Now, Jabril Peppers, on the other hand, he got injured this year. Obviously, missed a huge chunk of the season for the Giants. But last season, not the 2021, but 2020 season, he was an animal. And I saw him in a new light because I wasn't a Jabril Peppers fan coming out of Michigan. He struck me as a positionless football player. Not big enough to be a linebacker, but not instinctual enough to be a safety, a deep safety. Not fluid enough to be a cover guy so you could drop him over the slot, but physical enough and enough athletic traits to be near the line of scrimmage, creating havoc. So there was this tweener mechanism that kept kicking in for me with him. And those first couple of years in the league in Cleveland, that's exactly what he felt like to me. Just a guy that was on the field, never really reaching his full potential. Gets traded to the Giants. I thought he exploded in 2020. And, he gets injured in 2021. He's intriguing. But to me, he's like Landon Collins. So I wouldn't want to add him to this roster if you've got Landon Collins already. Because to me, they're one and the same player. I think he's a more athletically gifted version of Landon Collins. But I think his best work is done down around the line of scrimmage, where he's allowed to, roam the field, be aggressive, and just play loose and free. So that's what I think about him. I think he's a more athletically gifted version of Landon Collins. Let's see. Daniel Jones burner account. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, Joe Schoen and the Giants coming for the NFC East. They may. I mean, we've never had a repeat winner in this division since, we haven't had one, I should say, not never. We haven't had a repeat division winner since 2003, 2004 with the Eagles. So it's been a while. And if history repeats itself, somebody else is going to win the division not named Dallas. I've already said the Giants have talent. My line wasn't the Giants have talent. It was the Giants. They got guns and shit. Just don't know if they know how to use them. Well, if they get a coach in there that does know how to use them, a GM that does know how to find ammunition, more ammunition, can sharpen the weapons that they currently have and add some new weapons to the mix. Who knows? Giants aren't that far away, that they may not be as far away as we think. I think they stink, personally. I think that Daniel Jones stinks. I think that that roster isn't terrible, but it needs some work. I think the offensive line stinks. So I think there's some problems. We'll see. All it takes is the right guy to come in there and fix it. Daniel Jones, burner account. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, screenshot this. It's going to be Admirals or Armada. I don't have to screenshot it. I will give you credit if it's Armada, because it's not going to be Armada. Okay. Admirals is one that we've heard. Boomer Esiason, I talked about that on this show, 2-3 weeks ago. Boomer Esiason was adamant that it was going to be Admirals. I don't think it's going to be Admirals. Boomer Esiason can kick rocks too. Anyway, if you're right, I'm pretty sure you'll come back and tell us you were right, because as humans, that's what we do. And I wouldn't be mad, because if I were you, I would do the same thing. I'll remember that you said this, especially if it's Armada, because nobody thinks it's going to be Armada. So we'll see. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. My guy, King of the North, writes, tell him, Lou, nothing is going to change. No good QBs are coming here. No big trades. Nothing too risky. Maybe a nice, safe second-round quarterback with Trubisky, and we finish somewhere between 7-10 and 9-8. That sounds about right. That sounds exactly like what the offseason is going to be. There are these grandiose expectations from people like JP and others out there that want major change. And then there's the reality of the situation, where I think most of us are, that we understand that this is not a preferred destination. Any quarterback with chops, if you're a Russell Wilson and you've won, a Super Bowl, been to another, if you're Aaron Rodgers, won a Super Bowl, been to like 7 NFC championship games, and you're a Deshaun Watson, where you've been into the playoffs multiple times in your young NFL career, you got options. And if you've got options, I can assure you that there are better places out there to go than Washington. So I just don't see us landing anybody noteworthy. So that brings you to as you said, safe quarterback, or a nice, safe second-round pick quarterback, because those don't get you fired. They get you put on notice. They get your seat warm, but they don't get you fired. You make a mistake on a first-round quarterback, you got one foot out the door. You really close to getting fired. You draft a second-round quarterback and it doesn't work. Took a shot in the dark. Nobody's going to kill Howie Roseman if they decide to move on from Jalen Hurts, second-round quarterback, man. Nobody's going to even bat an eye. It's when you draft that first rounder and it doesn't work. Now we got problems. So second-round quarterback is safe, as you mentioned, and I think they go with a veteran stopgap, bridge type guy. And we already know what Taylor Heineke is. He's a backup. I told you he's a high-level NFL backup. So his position is safe. They're looking for a guy to go in front of him and a guy to go behind him. Our hope is that there is nobody behind him. There's just a guy in front of him, and it's either a big-name veteran, but more likely than not, a rookie quarterback. My thing is if you draft a dude in the second round, you're more likely to say, hey, go have a seat. Learn what it's like to be a pro. You draft a dude in the second round, it's pretty much you admitting he's not ready. You draft a guy in the first round, you're saying, hey, we think this guy can start day one. And Ron already told us, we draft a dude, we ain't really looking to sit him. I don't think that's the case with a second round pick. think that was more reserved for a first-round quarterback. So once again, we will see. But King of the North, that sounds pretty accurate to me. Pretty damn accurate, if I may say so myself. I think that's how the offseason is going to go. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, damn, Lou, joined the live and found myself depressed from your facts about the QB situation. I don't give a rat's ass about the name. I just care about the next QB. I'm 47 and tired of the same old BS. Yeah. And I don't mean to be depressing. Like that's not my aim. My aim is to be a realist and to inject that into the conversation, because there are so many fans out there that put on their rose-colored glasses and don't want to hear the truth. They just want to hear what they want to hear. And that's not the kind of time that I work under. You know, I don't work on, I don't work in fantasy land. I try to keep it a buck with y'all. And the fact of the matter is, Washington is not a preferred destination. And remember what I said after last season, going into this past season that just went by? I said before the season starts, I said, if we're looking to lure an Aaron Rodgers, a Deshaun Watson, a Russell Wilson, or any of these big name guys that may become available at some point, we need to build on what we did last year. I was very clear with that message. If you are truly trying to attract one of these big name fish at the quarterback position, you can't be 7-10 or 6-11 after 7-9. You need to be 9-8. Even if you miss the playoffs, but you 9-8, that would give somebody some pause. Like, you know what? They are trending in the right direction. You add me to their team, I'm good for another 3 victories. That's 12 wins. Let's do it. That's not what we did. You could either say we took a step back, or at best we moved laterally. Either way, if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm not looking to leave Seattle, who I think finished with the exact same 7-10 record that we did, to come to Washington and try to turn around their 7-10 outfit. If I'm Russell Wilson, I'd much rather go to Denver. I'd much rather go to Vegas if that's an option. I'd much rather go to New Orleans if that's, something that tickles my fancy, if they can find a way to make all of that work under the cap. I'd much rather go to a number of other destinations. Hell, I wouldn't go to Carolina. They're a mess. They're a train wreck. But there are enough options out there that this one isn't appealing. You can get to 3-4 other options before you come here. So I wasn't looking to make anybody depressed. I'm just trying to give you facts, because there are a lot of people out there that want to ignore the facts. And these are the facts. We're not a preferred destination. If Aaron Rodgers has his pick of the litter, he could just go to Denver. He can go to New Orleans. He can go to Vegas if that's available, if they so choose to do that. He can go to Pittsburgh. I even named the Steelers. If I'm any of them quarterbacks, I go there before I come here. They got weapons. They got a young running back. They got a young tight end. They got a hell of a defense. They did all of that with 97-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, who couldn't move. If I'm Russell Wilson, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I go to Pittsburgh. I go to New Orleans. I go to Denver. These are places that are ready to win with elite defenses. We thought our defense was elite. It's not. New Orleans shut out Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Held them to 0 points. I know it's family business. I don't give a shit. That's hard to do. They did it. And they won games off the strength of their defense with Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian starting at quarterback. How they managed to win 9 games this season behooves me, which is why Sean Payton should be a hot commodity right now. But it just goes to show you that that Saints team, if you add a quarterback, they're dangerous. Same thing with Denver. They were in the playoff hunt until like week 16. Why? Because of their defense and the weapons that they have surrounding their quarterback. And they have some nice young running backs. It's a lot of stuff on that Denver Broncos roster. A lot more than here. So, once again, I reiterate, if I'm a quarterback, and Derek Carr said this, and this is the kind of stuff that makes me think he wouldn't want to come here either. He said, at this point in my career, it ain't about, this was the message relayed from his brother, David. He said this about Derek. Derek wants to win. He doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't care about the money, all of that stuff. You know, Derek wants to win. And if he doesn't feel like the Raiders are going in the right direction to do that, then he's going to want to move on. If that's what Derek Carr truly cares about, the Steelers are all about winning. Mike Tomlin doesn't know what a losing season looks like in 15 years. The Denver Broncos are all about winning now. They haven't done much of it here recently, but it's because they haven't had a quarterback. He's seen them up close and personal in that division. He knows what Denver's about, and he probably feels like if I go there with all that weapon talent that they have and all those weapons they have, shit, I could turn it around. He has to know what New Orleans is about. So there are other places he can go to try to win. This Washington and win are not synonymous with one another. So there's that. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Big Money Sonny. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, Lou, thanks for putting the work in, and I hope you and the fam are all good, homie. Let's get ready for Trubisky or Jimmy G. All trash, but let's go. Thank you, Big Money Sonny, first and foremost, for all that you've done throughout the year and all your support, man. Can't thank you enough. Look, if we get one of those dudes, it'll be the same feeling I felt when we got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Some of you were elated. I remember a number of you, including, I want to say it was my guy Metaphor, that tried to come up with all these advanced statistics about Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's this, passer rating under, pressure and under the blitz. And, like, okay, yeah, right. And, they wanted him to be good. And we never really got a chance to find out here because he got hurt. But I want no parts of it. The only way that this feels any different than that for me is if they back that up with a rookie quarterback. And again, it doesn't have to be in the first or the second. It could be a third round. As long as there's a rookie on the roster, there's a reason to look forward to the upcoming season. Because if things go off the rails, the only thing that kept me sane in 2019, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I grew up when Washington was bad every single year in the 90s for the most part. After Gibbs 1.0 exited stage left, Richie Pettibone got that 1 year and he stunk. And it was unfortunate because Mark Rippon got hurt and that really hurt Richie. But still, it wasn't a good season. Then they got North Turner from Dallas, the famed offensive coordinator that helped the Cowboys win all those Super Bowls. Now they wanted to go get North Turner. They brought him to Washington because they figured he could take down the big bad Cowboys. And that wasn't the case. He had, some crazy wins. The one with Heath Schuler was a big win. We were double-digit underdogs, but we didn't get out of North what we thought we were going to get. That said, we were bad every year. We had 96. We started 7-1. I think we finished that season 8-8. 99 was the only other good year under North. Those were it. We stunk pretty much every other year. And I remember the 4-12s and the 5-11 years. It was bad. None of them even remotely came close to 2019. We were awful. There were some bad years in there. The Jim Zorn years, they were bad. Not the first year. Remember, we started off like gangbusters, and then the rest of the league figured us out, and Jim Zorn didn't have any adjustments to the league figuring him out. But there were some bad years in there, man. Some lean years. The early Shanahan years, like 2010, where, we got Ryan Terrain at running back, and we got a slew of other guys that have no business even being in the league, and they're on our team. Yeah, there were some lean years in there. None of them felt like 19. There was a sense of hopelessness and despair every single week. We knew before the season Jay Gruden was going to get fired. The schedule to start was brutal. And we knew he was going to get hit over the noodle. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And then the guy that was replacing him didn't instill any confidence in us, in old man Callahan. And so the only thing that kept me sane as a fan, engaged as a fan in 19, was Dwayne Haskins being on the roster. His development, his growth. That was it. So if you tell me, hey, we got a rookie. If this season bottoms out, and look, I don't think Ron Rivera is going to have a season that just bottoms out. That's not who he is as a coach. He's had some teams that have had injuries and been put in some tough spots, and he always gets his team to compete. So I don't think we'll ever be in a situation where we're 3-10 with 4 games left. However, you could get into a situation where you're already mathematically eliminated from postseason contention, and, it's week 13, but you stink. At week 13, you're 4-8 already. You stink. And you may ultimately win 7 or 8 games, but you stink. I need to have that young guy on the roster that gives me a reason to believe, gives me a reason to watch and hope that he gets in and can play well. Show us something. That's what would make signing one of those guys, a Mitchell Trubisky, a Jimmy G, a Marcus Mariota, that's what would make that more tolerable for me. Is, hey, we still got a rookie on the roster. There's a chance he can see the field. If you don't get a rookie and you go into camp with a Trubisky, Taylor Heineke, and that's it, or you bring back Kyle Allen to add to that mix, ouch. You know what I'm saying? Ouch. Barrett Downing. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy BD. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I'm old enough that I've seen the glory days, but I really want my son to see it. As for the name, we'll see HTT ? Keep doing it. Thank you, BD. Greatly appreciate you. And that is a part of, I think, a lot of us wanting to pass this down to the next lineage, the next group, and have them know something other than losing, other than wishing, other than talking about the past. See, son, this is what it used to look like in the glory days. Dad, that was 35 years ago. I know. This is what it's supposed to look like. And maybe you too one day will get to experience this. You want to be able to say that to your son. Hey, this is what it's supposed to be like. But if you have a son that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, all he knows is losing, man. There's been the one flash in the pan season here and there, 05, 07, 2012, 15, 19, or 20. We've had them sporadically where we get hot at the end of a season. We win a downtrodden division. It's never us outlasting a good division. It's always us backdooring our way in during a bad division or a down year in the conference as a whole. So you're able to sneak in as a wild card. It's never us outlasting a 9 or 10 win Dallas or Philly or Giants. It's everybody in the division stinks, and we are the least funkiest, so we get to win the division and go to the playoffs. That shit gets old too. At some point, I want to be able to outduel somebody. You're good, we're good, but we're just better than you. Michael White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Michael White, who writes, strip sack touchdown by Chase Young against the 49ers. Nah, that wouldn't be it. That wouldn't be the still shot. That's a good play though, and if they did that, I wouldn't have a problem with it because it was epic. You know, the strip by, I want to say it was Deron Payne that forced the fumble. Chase scoops it up down the sideline and goes. That would be dope, but that's not the one that I would put in a time capsule. JP, my guy John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, Washington football team's legacy will be one-time NFC East champs, but also gave way to a new era of stars like Young, Terry, Sweat, Curl, and Gibson. I like that. I think that would be apt because the first year of Chase, Curl, Gibson, the ascension of, Sweat, because Sweat's rookie season, it took him like the first 10 games of his rookie season to even get a sack. But then he came on like game busters towards the end of that 19 season. And then I think we saw the continuation of that in 2020. I thought he was the most improved player on the team. And so all of that happened during the, era of Washington football team. So I could definitely get with that. Young had that 1 year in 2020 that we're hoping he can get back to in 2022. But I think that's a really good way of putting it. NFC East champs one time, and a lot of young guys that we think are the nucleus and base of, and that's similar to what was said earlier when somebody brought up Logan, Terry, and Cole's development. It's sort of like that. But I think these guys, I think we would all agree, Gibson, Curl, Sweat, Terry, Young, maybe not Sweat. We'll see if they have to choose one or the other on the DN front. But Chase Young, Terry McLaurin, Cameron Curl, and Antonio Gibson are all foundational pieces to this team. I think we can all agree on that. So, all right, I like that one, JP. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, Giants really banking on Danny Dimes? Come on, man. I love it. I mean, look, as much as we rag on Daniel Jones, his rookie season was impressive. He was 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Yeah, he fumbled the ball a ton. I get it. But he showed athleticism. He showed poise and moxie in that rookie season. And then it just went to hell in a handbasket. And we went downhill from there. A lot of coaching changes, a lot of, pieces around him changing, a lot of dysfunction around him. It was not a lot of continuity, not a lot of things he could hang his hat on. Saquon Barkley was always injured, so that always left him in a position where he had to fend for himself and really do everything by himself, and he's not that kind of quarterback. So they said they're going to do everything they can to accentuate his strengths, meaning they're going to try to put him in better positions to succeed. We'll see if they're able to do that or not. He isn't horrible. I just don't think he is a guy that leads you to anywhere. I think it's a road that leads to nowhere. But I want them to take as long as possible to figure that out. The longer they take, the better it is for everyone in the division, including us. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. I want the Eagles to stick it out with him, continue to try and get better with him, because he may continue to develop. He may even get better. But I still think there's a ceiling to Jalen Hurts' game. And I think there's only so much you can do with him. And I think it's a road that leads to nowhere. So I want these teams in the division to continue to play around with mediocrity while we know what mediocrity looks like. We've had a slew of quarterbacks that fit in that mold, okay, that fit the description and bill. So we know mediocrity at the quarterback position when we see it. That's why we're able to identify it so easily. Well, we're on the hunt for something more than that. And we may ultimately end up coming back with more mediocre quarterbacks that produce mediocre quarterback play and be right in the same mix with the Giants and Eagles again. But the hope is we're aiming for the stars, and the hope is that we actually get one. That's the hope. But the Giants, that's what they're rolling with Dan. They're rolling with Dan. We're going to see what he does. Tony P, 56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Tony P, writes, shaking my head, Washington Commanders, weak and too many syllables. Hey, get used to it. That might be the name, man. We will see. Again, next week, this time, we will have an official new name, and I will start having to come up with ideas for a new name to the show and everything that goes with it. But I'm not the biggest Commanders, fan. I mean, there's no way of shortening that. That was one of the problems with football team. There was no way to shorten football team. Yeah, you're not just the team. There was no way to clean that up and make it more palatable. I feel the same way with Commanders. Like, I don't want anybody calling us the commies. Somebody was like the commies. I'm like, nah, not exactly. I don't want to be called the commies. You can't just be command, right? Unless you are a huge fan of scandal. No one takes command. Then you're pretty badass. But Commanders is pretty damn long, and there's no way to shorten it, make it, a cool badass name. It's just Commanders. You got to say the whole thing. People will just call us Washington anyway. If the name sucks, they'll just call us Washington. At least I would hope. Tony P, 56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Tony P, 56, who writes, did you hear about Washington Legends? Thoughts? No, I haven't heard about that. I've seen people throw that out there randomly, but never had anything tangible to really back Washington Legends. I don't even know how I would feel about that. It just seems bland. But again, if it was Washington Legends, okay, let's go win some games. Let's become legends. All right, let's become legendary. I'd be ready to go. All right, let's do it. I don't think that's the name, though. I don't. If it's something that we haven't heard about, Jason Wright is a genius. Even if it's a garbage name, Jason Wright is a genius, and he had us all fooled. And then I would say, you know what? That business that you worked for, that was one of the most prestigious business firms in the country. Job well done. You learned a lot there because you had us all off the trail. We weren't even close. If it's a name that we weren't even thinking of, hadn't heard about, Jason Wright's a genius. But if it's one of these names that we heard a whole bunch of, and if it's Commanders, I'm taking them to task. If it's something else that got out already, okay, whatever, let's move on. But if it's something like Legends, no one said Legends. No one's talking about Legends. If it's Legends or something like that, wow. It's not, but wow. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Dejan writes, also Washington football team post game with loudmouth mouth Fred Smoot. See, I stopped watching it. I used to watch that, and I used to record every episode, and I would watch the interviews with the players, and they get an interview with Ron right outside the locker room, and I used to hang on everywhere. I stopped watching because it became redundant. I loved it when D'Angelo Hall was up there because he used to say stuff that some of the other guys were too reserved to say, B. Mitch, he's always the angry black man on the panel. They get their ass whooped. B. Mitch is going to go on some kind of limitless and, somewhat non sequitur rant. And, he's going to start blaming random people. And I see this and I see that when I'm at the park. And then he starts talking about how it was. And when they were winning, I'm like, it's not like that no more. And I wish, all the oldies but goodies want it to be the way it was. It's not like that anymore. You're not going to line up and crack skulls and strike iron. Like, this ain't 1987. Hey, I mean, it's cool when Tennessee does it. It's cool when Cleveland does it, but you're going to need a quarterback eventually. Tennessee just proved it again. You're going to need a quarterback eventually. So it's cool to rush for 224 yards in week 6 against the Jets and win that football game. It's cool for your running back, for Gibson to go for 178 and 3 touchdowns and a win over the Baltimore Ravens in week 11. It's cool for Gibson to go over the 1,600-yard rush mark, set the Washington franchise record for most yards rushing in a season in his week 16 184-yard 2-touchdown performance over the Eagles. At some point, though, in the playoffs, you're going to need whoever is under center to make some plays. And we always go back to that. Got to have that guy. Got another super chat here from Washington Fan Forever 79. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, trade the 11th pick, accumulate more picks, draft a quarterback next year. So that scenario is on the table, obviously. You've got to have a pick that people, want. So there needs to be a player or two that is there at the pick. Like, for instance, last year at 11, the Giants sat there and there were 2 quarterbacks on the board. So the Giants were in a great spot. The Bears came calling, and the Giants were willing to strike a deal. It's got to be something like that where, and this isn't the draft where I think somebody's going to be desperate to come up and get a quarterback, but it could be a different position that somebody is desperate to get. I remember one year the Steelers desperately wanted Devin Bush, and the Broncos sat there at 10, and the Steelers was like, we need to replace Ryan Shazier. Our defense is not the same without an athletic, freaky linebacker in the middle. So they traded up to 10 to get Devin Bush. It hasn't worked out the way that they wanted it to. He's been solid, but he hasn't been Devin White, which they were hoping he'd be like that. I don't think anybody's going to be coveting the 11th pick in the draft. And remember, when we talk about trading back, it takes 2 to tango. Somebody's got to want your pick and want to come up, and you've got to like the compensation to move back. And you've got to feel like, if I trade back, how far back am I going? And am I going to still be able to get one of the guys that I feel like is worthy in this first round? Like, you don't want to move too far back. If you move back from 11 to 20 like the Giants did, you got to be getting a future first round pick. That's a lot of spaces back. You're moving back 9 spaces. That's a lot of guys going ahead of your selection now than what would have been there when you selected. So you're passing up on a lot of talented football players. So you got to be compensated for that. But also, do you feel like it's not that much different from 11 to 20? We felt really good about 7 dudes in this draft. They're all gone. So now you get into a group of guys where we're like, the next 15 guys are bunched together. If we move back 9 spots, we'll still be able to take one of those 15 guys. So we feel pretty good about moving back. Like, this is how people think about the draft. When you start thinking about moving up, moving back, how far back am I moving? Am I going to miss out on 2 or 3 guys that we really like if I move back 5 spots? Potentially I could. But if I feel like, man, who I get at 11 is the same dude I would get at 15, is the same dude I would get at 21, then you don't mind moving back 5, 10 spots. But I'm all for drafting a quarterback next year. But the key is you got to get to next year. How do we get through this year if you don't have another dude or 2 on the roster? Because I think most fans are like, hey, I know it's a number of fans out there that are like, hey, we should give Taylor another chance. That was his first year starting. I think most of us, though, are like, we pretty much know how this movie ends. Like, Taylor's a really good backup quarterback. He doesn't need to be starting, though. So what else you got for us? I think that's how most of us feel like, hey, we need to do something else. Even if the draft option isn't really, available this year for Washington, which I think they're going to figure a way to get a quarterback. Like, I think Ron's desperate this year. I think Ron is desperate to get a quarterback in here, even if it's not a first round dude or even a second round dude. I think they desperate to just get a young guy that they can try to mold and develop in here. So I think they're going to do something at quarterback. But I've already said I'd love to get my hands on Bryce Wilson next year, Bryce Young out of Alabama. I'd love to get my hands on that kid next year. But there are going to be a lot of teams that want to get their hands on Bryce Young next year. So we won't be alone. And I can tell you this, you're going to have to trade up because we're not going to be 2-15 and have the number 1 pick overall in the draft. So you're going to have to trade up. And if that first team stinks and they happen to need a quarterback, well, there you go. Bryce Young's gone number 1. And that discussion's dead. Just like the Bengals were number 1 and we didn't have a chance to get Joe Burrow. I guarantee you we take Joe Burrow if he's available. He wasn't because the Bengals had the number 1 pick. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, salutes to Metaphor for figuring out the name. The Washington Reminiscers. Pete Rock and CL Smooth when they reminisce over you, my God. I don't want to keep reminiscing. But reminiscers, that's what we've been over the last 25 years. Just keep talking about the damn past. Got to create some new memories, man. Anyway, I digress. Leonard Smiley, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you once again, Leonard Smiley. Tizzy Bang, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, off schedule, but Lou, what's your top 5 rappers of all time? I mean, that list is one that I would have to sit down and actually, I don't have these conversations often with people, so I don't have just a 5 right off the top. But I was growing up, I was a massive Jay-Z fan. I'm a massive Biggie fan. So those two are definitely, I'm an East Coast guy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm biased as hell. So those two are definitely in my top 5. I've said this, I've caught flack for this, and it's fine, but I'm not a big Pac guy. I like his music. I don't love Pac and I don't adorn him and I don't fawn over him like a lot of people do. I'm not as nostalgic when it comes to Tupac. I love some of his music. I don't love all of his catalog. So, and you won't love every, any rapper's entire catalog. They all have at least one album where it's forgettable, Anyway, there's some other guys, I'd have to sit down and kind of map out, how I really feel, because there's some dudes that are nasty that deserve some more recognition. So, yeah, it'd be hard for me to come up with 5. I could do it, but I'd have to sit down and actually put together a list of about 12 and then cross them out and get to 5. That's probably how I would have to do it. Bigger TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bigger TV writes, Lou, what's good? What's going on with you, Bigger? He said that new merch about to hit though. Yeah, I'm cooking up some crack, man. Once we get this new name, I'll see what we can do and go back in the lab and see if I can't conjure up some stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see what the new name is. And then once we get there, if there's anything to do spinning off of that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll come up with some creative stuff, man. Because there's some dudes I'm excited about on the squad. And I think there could be, some big seasons ahead for some of these guys, especially if we fit some of the pieces to the puzzle together. some of these guys could really explode on this roster. So we'll see. Really appreciate you, Bigger TV. Thanks for the super chat. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, respectfully, Lou, how in the hell does this team get new fan base? Us old heads been around, but the young bucks have options. Again, respectfully. No. This is a real question. And I think, half of the new fan base, they're born into this. Like, they don't have a choice. It's indoctrinated into them. Like, you're born and you don't have options. You're a Washington fan. If you grow up in the area, it's one of your local teams, you root for them. And, it's funny because a buddy of mine, we both grew up in Virginia. And obviously, VA doesn't have any professional sports teams. So it's funny how you latch on to a team, like what draws you in. And my buddy, he's a Vegas Raiders fan. He's a Phoenix Suns fan, and he's an Atlanta Braves fan. Like, it's a weird combination, right? Like, how did you become fans of all three? And we have these discussions all the time. And he tells me, well, the first basketball game I ever remember was game 4 of the NBA Finals, and Charles Barkley was the MVP that year, and he lit up the Bulls, and they won in Chicago Stadium. That's how I became a Suns fan. Okay, I get that. First thing you saw, it mesmerized you, and you became a fan. Braves, he became a Braves fan for the same reason I became a Braves fan. It was on TV. You saw it all the time in Virginia, and they were on TBS. Solved. You saw them first. That's it. That's the end all be all. And then the Raiders, I asked him, same thing. The first football game he remembers watching was a Raiders game. They won. They were good, and he was a Raiders fan. That's how a lot of people become fans of teams. They either, find a player that they really, truly love. He plays for that team, so they're a fan of that team, and it sticks. Or the first team that you saw on your television screen or on your phone or on your tablet or whatever these kids are watching these games on these days, you see this team, and more than likely we're not kicking ass, right? But, that you might catch us on a week where we are kicking some ass. You're like, hey, I like this team. And now you're a fan. You're right. They got options. And I've heard this more now in the last 5 years than I've heard in my entire life combined. I'm about to become a Ravens fan. There's a lot of those out here where, I'll just go up 95 a little bit. They're having a little bit more success. They're easier to root for to become a Ravens fan. There are options out there. But to me, I've always said this. I hate the fact that I've never lived somewhere that was in a major sports town, because the city is abuzz when the team is good and they're winning and big games are coming up. My buddy right now, he lives in Cincinnati, and he's not a Bengals fan, but it's crazy because he's a Raiders fan and they played the Bengals and he was at the game. And he just talked about how the city was abuzz, the 2 days, 3 days leading up to the game. It was just lit. The city was lit. And when they won, the city was on fire. And then when they beat Tennessee, it went even higher to another level. And I just find it hard to believe that if you live in a state or a city where a team is, or you're in a neighboring city where there's a professional team, it's hard not to get sucked in. I've never lived in one, so I can't relate. But I would imagine it's hard to not get sucked in. Now, we stink, and it makes it easy to not get sucked in. But I would imagine that's how you get new fans. They're the local team. It's easy to root for the local team. You got parents, you got an uncle, you got a granddad that were Redskins fans, and now they're passing their fandom down to you. It's just how it goes. Your first game was a Redskins game or a Washington game, so you became a Washington fan. You're right, though. If I've said this before, I don't know if I actually meant it, but I've said it. If this weren't already ingrained in me, if I weren't already, having burgundy and gold pumping through my veins, I wouldn't put up with this shit, man. If I could root for another team, I would. I've said that at least 5 times. I don't think I actually mean that, but there are times where I feel defeated as a fan, right? Like after that Cowboys game, the first one, that hurt. But it wasn't over. When COVID struck us and I knew we were going to lose against Philadelphia, I felt defeated as a fan. Because that whole 6-game, 4-game win streak, getting back to 500, all the shit I was talking on the Super Friends stream, I meant every word I said. I wasn't backing down from any of it, but I couldn't have predicted what was to come. But it doesn't make it any less disappointing. Nobody cares that you got 80 dudes on the COVID list and you could barely field the team. That's not their problem. And I would feel the exact same way if Philadelphia would have rolled up into Washington and they had to push the game back a couple of days. I wouldn't give 2 shits about the Eagles roster and how decimated they are. I just want to whoop their ass and get this win. That Cowboys loss the second time around, I was more numb at that point because I knew the season was over. So the expectations were already on, ground level. So it didn't sting me as much as it did, but it's still embarrassing, right? On national television. I was dejected as a fan again. Not like 2019 where I'm like, why do I even do this? Like even doing these videos was hard in 2019. Even doing the shows was hard, at least until Dwayne got in, and then it gave us something to talk about. But how are you supposed to get excited over beating the Dolphins when Ryan Fitzpatrick came in the fourth quarter and almost came back and beat you? And if they really wanted to, they could have kicked the extra point, went to overtime. They had all the momentum. They probably beat us instead of calling some bullshit-ass 2-point conversion play that had no chance of working. How can you get excited about that? Other than the fact that, hey, we won't go winless this season. Because no one wants to go 0-16. And we could have easily went 0-16. We don't beat the Dolphins. That's a great question, Big Money Sonny. If you don't have a parent or an older sibling or an older family member that forces that fandom on you, and you're a young person, you're 14, you're 15, you're 16, why in the hell would you choose this team? If you live here, I get it. You live in the DMV, I get it. But if you don't live in this area and you don't have, I can't imagine somebody living in Montana or, somewhere that doesn't have a football team, like Montana or Wyoming or St. Louis, or even a team, even a fan living somewhere on the East Coast, that's close by, but they still don't have a professional team there, like New Hampshire, even though that's further up north. I couldn't imagine them picking Washington as their favorite team. Whereas back in the day, granted, there were less teams. There were no Panthers. There weren't as many teams on the East Coast. But still, you could be a fan living in New Mexico and a fan of Washington, hoping that they can't wait till they play the Arizona Cardinals so you can get a glimpse of them out in Tempe. That I can't imagine how that could be the case today. Brandon J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Brandon J writes, when's the next NFC East Super Friends show, Lou? I don't know. I wish I had a concrete answer for you, but I do plan on linking up with the fellas here in a bit and kind of, gauging their interest as to when we can do it again and link. It's something that I know you guys clamor for, and what my goal is, what my aim is to make it something that is more concrete, something that you can come to expect, 4, 6, 8 times a year, and you know when you're going to get it, instead of you having to ask, when's the next one? You'll know. That's my goal. Now, I don't know how that's going to go over. I don't know how everybody's schedule jives, but if I have it the way that I want it, that's how I'll have it set up. And so I'm going to talk to the fellas, see what we can do, and try to get some of that content out to you guys. Thank you for the super chat, Brandon J. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, subscribe and hit that like, y'all. Lou has twins to support, and just as important, Condoleezza said so. Salutes, y'all. Y'all heard the man. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Run those likes up, as Condo P likes to say. And also make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Thank you again, Big Money Sonny. 1/6 Devil Doc, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. 1/6 Devil Doc. Is this double up for you? This might be double up territory. Double up. I'm not sure. Felt like you were the podcast, not Tonight Show. I could be wrong. I'm gonna just double up anyway. He said, should be spillage if 2 or 3 quarterbacks picked before 10. I think so. I think there's real spillage opportunity. If there's a second quarterback selected in the top 10, I think there could be some spillage. A guy like Kyle Hamilton could fall to us at 11. If you get 2, I think 1 is fine because I expect 1. I think if you get a second quarterback in the top 10, then there's spillage. Because you're going to get at least 1, possibly 2 tackles. You're going to get 2 defensive ends in Thibodeau and Hutchinson. You know that for a fact, okay? That's one of the few guarantees you have in this year's draft are those 2 defensive ends. You're more likely than not, Derek Stingley Jr. is going to go in the top 10, probably top 5, top 7. So you got 2 edge rushers, you got a corner. I don't foresee any running backs. I don't foresee any tight ends. I don't foresee any receivers going in the top 10. I don't foresee any linebackers going top 10. I could see one going at 10, but not inside of the top 10. I don't see any, and that's all the positions pretty much. I don't see any interior defensive. Like there's no Derek Brown. I think this year there are a couple of guys that are intriguing, but I don't think there's any Derek Browns among the group that goes in the top 10. I just think that this is a draft class where, for the most part, the talent will be soaked up in the top 10 like it's supposed to. But, again, you get an extra tackle, the kid Neal and the tackle from, I think he's NC State. So you got the Alabama tackle, you got the NC State tackle. You start getting these tackles pushed up, and a couple of them go in the top 10. You get the edge rushers, you get a corner, you get a quarterback. Then you start having that conversation. But I just don't see how the top 10 fills up all that fast this year. 2 quarterbacks might start to produce some spillage, but 1 I think is fine. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Tony P56 writes, what's up with Flores and Watson to Giants rumor? Scary. So apparently Flores and Watson have been talking to one another. We don't know if this is true. This is a rumor, but I think there's some validity to it. I think Flores was spearheading Watson to Miami because it turns out that's why Miami moved on from Flores. I still don't love it, but I get it. If you weren't seeing eye to eye with him over, philosophical differences, that's truly philosophical differences. Like, we drafted a quarterback You don't like him. You want to move on from him, but we invested in him and we're like, no, he's the future. And you're like, well, he's not a part of my future. And they're like, okay, well, you don't have to be here then. But Watson, I think, and Flores share a common thread, which is New York. Flores, I think, was born and raised in New York. I think he went to school in New York. I think he's a New York guy through and through. Meanwhile, Watson claims to have a lot of business opportunities in New York, and there are other reasons. I mean, it's the Big Apple. You know, if you're looking to build your brand and expand, you want to go to one of the coasts. You want to go to either New York or you want to go to LA, you know. And it's not like you have to go to one of those places to build your brand, but it's so much easier to do it from one of those two places. So, yeah, there's a lot of that. But the Giants just said that they're holding on to Daniel Jones and they want to build around him. So if that's the case, first of all, their owner, John Mara, said, we're not pursuing Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's lying when he says that. I think he's 100% being actual factual with us. Like, he looks at Watson as some kind of deviant and doesn't want him anywhere near his organization. So I don't see them going after Watson. So that's case closed for me. And they can hire Brian Flores. As long as they got Daniel Jones, I'm good. I just don't want Watson in my division. If he comes to the NFC, that sucks, but at least not our division. That's all. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, being realistic, early NFC East fin standings 1, 2, or 3. So where are we finishing? I mean, yeah, it's way too early because we don't know what this offseason brings. Like, I was so excited for the Cowboys to lose Dan Quinn, and now his ass is coming back. So I think the Cowboys defensively are going to continue to be good, which sucks for the rest of the division because I don't give a shit about their offensive coordinator. He can get a job. He can not get a job. I don't think he's a difference maker, honestly speaking. But Dan Quinn is a difference maker. You had Michael Parsons, who's a rookie, saying, hey, coach, I'm going to be heartbroken if you get a job somewhere else, man. I don't want you to leave. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you here. But if you do go, I'm going to support you wherever you go. I love you, man. But I want you back here. That was Michael Parsons last week. Well, he got his wish. Dan Quinn's coming back to Dallas, and I'm not happy about it. Last year in the offseason, I said the single biggest acquisition in the division wasn't a player, but it was Dan Quinn coming to clean up that Dallas Cowboys mess of a defense. Well, he did that and then some. I think the biggest acquisition this year is, once again, Dan Quinn. This time not going. And sometimes the biggest moves and the best moves are the moves that aren't made. And him not leaving might be the biggest move in this division. We'll see. If we get a quarterback, that's a pretty significant move made by us. But it's got to be a good one. It's got to be a needle mover. Can't just be a guy. So I can't tell you what it's going to be. Again, Dallas is the most talented team in the division. So if we're just going off of talent, Dallas is number one, and then everybody else just fall in line. Get in where you fit in. You know, I feel like we're better than the Eagles. We didn't finish better than the Eagles last year, so we got to see. Farrah Cody, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Farrah Cody writes, come on, Lou, let's be honest. We go to the playoffs if it wasn't for COVID, bruh. Stop, bruh. LOL. Plus, people like Ron around the league. No, if we didn't have COVID, there's no guarantees we do any damn thing. We just got our ass run by Dallas. That was healthy, relatively healthy, okay? We weren't getting Landon Collins back. That didn't have anything to do with COVID. We weren't getting J.D. McKissick back. That had nothing to do with COVID. We weren't getting Montez Sweat back. That had nothing to do with COVID. We weren't getting Logan Thomas back. That had nothing to do with COVID. Let's not act as if COVID was the singular reason this season tanked. We were banged up, and we thought we were getting healthy, and then we got banged up again. And it was guys that we could ill afford to lose, like Logan Thomas, like J.D. McKissick, and Logan Thomas, like Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick, Landon Collins, and Montez Sweat. We could ill afford to lose those guys. And they weren't coming back. So don't try to act like it was just COVID, because we could have went against the Eagles without all of those guys, because none of those guys would have played in the game against the Eagles. And except for Sweat. Sweat would have played. I think Sweat did play in that game. Outside of Sweat, there would have been no Landon Collins because he re-aggravated his injury in the Dallas game, the first Dallas game. J.D. McKissick and Logan Thomas were already hurt. McKissick in the Seattle game, Thomas in the Vegas game. Those guys weren't coming back. Our offense went to shit once J.D. McKissick got hurt. You know, I love Logan Thomas and what he brought to the offense, and I felt like he was going to be a huge piece. But we were still adequate with J.D. in there. We scored 29 against the Bucs, 27 against the Panthers. He gets hurt against Seattle at the end of that game, and I think we would have scored a touchdown on that final possession if J.D. McKissick was healthy. But he gets hurt there. We don't score a touchdown. We don't put that game away. We allow Russ to go down there and score, and luckily enough, they weren't able to get the 2-point conversion. We were able to hold on for dear life to that victory. But our offense was anemic against Vegas. He didn't play in that game. Our offense was anemic against Dallas. He didn't play in that game, and he didn't play the rest of the season. And our offense was terrible the rest of the season. Even the Giants game we won in week 18, our offense was putrid in that game. We ran it. Our offense wasn't good in that game. So it's not stop, bruh. We would have made it to the playoffs. No, there's no guarantees we would have did a damn thing. Not a single one. And I can like you, okay? That's half the equation. I'm not doing business with somebody I don't like unless the business is too good to pass up. But half of doing business is liking the person you're doing business with. But you still got to actually have a product that I want. Like, I could like you, but you sell a shit product. Nah, I'm good. Good luck with your thingamajiggy over there. But I'm good. I'm not investing in that. If I don't care who likes Ron around the league, okay? Give a shit who thinks Ron's a stand-up guy. If your team is shit, I'm not signing up to play for him. It's really simple. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, I respect the energy from Farrah Cody brought, but we are way behind doing any damage in the NFC. Proof was in the past week's playoff games. Look, every year in the playoffs, we kind of gauge where we are and how far away we truly are from making a dent. If you watch the playoffs this year, on one hand, you go, whoa, we are not close. On the other hand, you're like, we can beat the 49ers. They got Jimmy G. We can do that. So on one hand, you're like, if we were in the AFC, we would not be close. But we're not in the AFC. We're in the NFC, where a 1 seed isn't even in the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. A 2 seed, a 3 seed isn't even in the championship game. It's a 4 versus 6. We're not that far away in the NFC, okay? The problem is, if you're serious about winning a Super Bowl, then you've got Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, and Allen to contend with on that side of the bracket. So even if you get through the NFC, I don't know if you're good enough to beat one of those guys. That's where the real problem lies. But I don't think we're that far off in the NFC because our conference isn't as strong. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, John Perez writes, random question. Could you go into the backstory about why you and the fans went so apeshit on Washington potentially hiring Jim Fossil? Because at that time, we didn't want a retread coach from the division that we didn't believe was all that good when he was in the division. So Jim Fossil was the former head coach of the New York Giants. He led them to a Super Bowl appearance. They destroyed the Vikings like nobody saw that coming. They beat the Vikings like 41-0 in the NFC Championship game. Then they turned around the 2 weeks later and got a mud hole stomped in them by the Ravens. And he wasn't a terrible coach. We thought we could do better, right? You're coming off of Joe Gibbs 2.0, and the prevailing thought was that we were going to transition right into Greg Williams. Anybody that was a massive fan of those teams from 04 to 07 loved Greg Williams, loved the defense, and felt like it was natural for us to progress from Joe to Greg. The players loved him. We loved him as fans, and that didn't happen. So once they decided they wanted to go in another direction, we were already, already hurt as a fan base. We were already pissed off. So the next name that you come up with, it better be a doozy if you're going to pass over Greg Williams for him. And the fact of the matter is that name, Jim Fossil, comes up like, oh, hell no, not this retread bastard from the Giants. No way. He can't be our coach. So we lost it because we wanted Greg. We didn't get what we wanted. And then you're going to bring this guy in here? Ain't no way. And I mean, turns out to be a disastrous move by us as fans because we exerted our power on that one. But what we got was Jim Zorn as a consolation prize, and it couldn't have been any worse. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We didn't want Jim Fossil here as a retread coach from the Giants when we wanted Greg Williams. If we couldn't get Greg Williams, then we felt like we go from Joe Gibbs. We felt like we should be able to get something really good. Keep in mind that the last three coaches, prior to that was Marty, Spurrier, and then you got after Spurrier, you got Joe Gibbs. After that train wreck, because we had hit rock bottom after Spurrier, like, oh my God, we suck. And that's when he pulled Joe Gibbs out of the hat. And so if you're getting these kinds of names, Marty Schottenheimer, Steve Spurrier, Joe Gibbs, and now you're going to get Jim Fossil? What? No way. And it ended up being even worse. We got Jim Zorn. So we didn't want Jim Fossil because we really wanted Greg Williams. I felt like it was less about Fossil and more about you going to turn down Greg Williams for this chump? Nah, we ain't having that. Barry Curtis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Barry writes, hey, Lou, since the quarterback draft class is weak, you may as well draft the only guy that has superstar potential, which is Malik Willis. Even though he is raw, don't see upside in any other guys. You say that, but if you're drafting a guy with a boom or bust potential, it could go one of two ways. Rarely does the boom or bust guy just end up being average. You generally know when you're getting one of those guys. A game manager, a guy that can, move the sticks, do the little things, but he won't wow you. When you get a boom or bust guy, he's either going to light it up or he's going to flame out. And when you swing for the fences, which you should do at the quarterback position, you want to do it with a guy that even if he's not a superstar, which you're aiming for when you draft a quarterback, you want him to at least be manageable. You don't want him to fall off the face of the earth if he's not any good. You don't want him to be a guy that like Jamarcus Russell. where he can't even be in the league anymore. He stinks so bad. You know, I fear that's what's going to happen to Dwayne Haskins here shortly. If it doesn't work in Pittsburgh, he could be out of the league. You know, Josh Freeman, another guy with a ton of talent, but, you know, just couldn't cut it in the NFL for whatever reason. Those are the boom or bust guys. The Jake Lockers of the world. Those are boom or bust guys. You rather take a guy that gives you a chance. Yeah, it's a safer pick, but you're not going to be looking for another quarterback in 2.5, 3 years. I don't know if Malik Willis has superstar potential or not. I'll let you know in 2 weeks. I should be able to tell you a little something by then. You'll know how I feel. I would have already put the video out. You'll know how I feel. But I can tell you this. He's extremely raw. And raw in this league at that position with a first round designation is usually all bad omens when you put them together. Now, Trey Lance is raw. Jordan Love, he was a little rough around the edges, but Trey Lance especially was raw. Only 1 year of starting experience. I went to a much smaller school. Did play in a pro-style offense, but just needed more time and didn't have enough experience, starts, seasoning, none of that. Super raw, super talented. We'll see what he does next year. Could Malik Willis be one of those types of players? Maybe. I'll let you know how I feel about him. But we'll see. You're right about most of the guys in this draft. I got to watch film on some of these other guys. But for the most part, you know, a lot of these guys don't look like they have another gear or a dimension they can tap into. They are what they are. We'll see. Michael White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Michael White, writes, it's a sleeper, but Watson goes to the Titans. That'd be interesting. You know, played in that division, would get to see the Texans twice a year, so he could still torment them. They definitely need a quarterback. I just don't know if they're in a position to move on from Ryan Tannehill. I know they gave him a contract like after the 19 season, so going into 2020, they gave him an extension. So I don't know where they are in that extension, and if there's an exit ramp for them. Don't know if they have any tradable capital. Don't know what their cap situation looks like. I don't know if they're in a position to make that move or not, but that would be a great move for them. They're literally a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. Literally. So that'd be interesting. And I'd love it because he'd keep his ass in the AFC. But if I'm the Titans or if I'm the Texans, I'm trading Deshaun Watson. He's going to an NFC team. I definitely don't want to trade him in the division. See him twice a year. I just don't see that happening. DCJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy DCJ writes, what's good, Lou? What's good with you? Still seems like it's been a while. Says, to you and your family, blessings. But unfortunately, Commander seems to be it. I don't like it, but whatever. New name, not cool with no win skins. Is going to be bigger than race. Win like Chiefs talk. It is what it is. I already told you, I just want to win ball games. And that's what it all boils down to. I'm not looking to out anybody else. We can't have our name. They can't have their name. I'm not looking to do any of that to anybody else. I'm not the guy that, you know, three of us go into a store, one person gets caught stealing, and we all got to go down. Hey, they got us. Y'all can come out, man. They got us. I'm not that guy. If they pop me, they pop me. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, winning cures all. You may not love the name. I can tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of people come next Wednesday that can't stand the name, don't like the uniforms, don't like the color scheme, this, that, and the third, don't like the logo. Oh, this is garbage. This is whack. Can't believe this is what they changed it to. I'm not buying any of this stuff. And all of that is fine. You don't have to buy a damn thing. You can still support the team without buying any merch, without spending 1 red cent, right? However, I guarantee you this team goes 12-5, wins this division, hosts a playoff game. Them same people that's talking about they not buying this and they not buying that, they not supporting this, they not supporting that. Let us win a playoff game and have a chance in the divisional round to move on. And we got something brewing here, and we got a quarterback, and this is sustainable. Them same people will be rocking Commanders gear. I guarantee you. Okay. It's easy to say what you are or aren't going to do when your team is a perennial loser. Turn this ship around, start winning ball games on a regular, and see how shit switches up and how quick it does. We'll see what happens. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, how many years before the fire sale begins, Lou? I don't think there's one coming. This has never been an organization that has totally allowed the thing to hit the rock bottom. It did in 2019, but that wasn't because they wanted it to. It just because our roster sucked. That wasn't intentionally done where we traded away guys and we started all over like the Dolphins did and got a whole bunch of draft capital and tried to rebuild it from the ground up. We just sucked. 5 years of Bruce Allen continuing to say we're close when we weren't close to anything but mediocrity. And so finally the bottom fell out. When Alex Smith got hurt and there was no quarterback to replace him, finally the bottom fell out. When you're going into a season with Case Keenum as your damn starter, you deserve to have one of your worst seasons in franchise history. You're asking for it. And oh, by the way, with not a lot of talent around him, too. Let's make that abundantly clear. The same Case Keenum that led the Vikings to a 13-3 record and a trip to the NFC Championship game. He's done it in the past, but with a lot more talent around him. We didn't have that here in Washington. Wasn't even remotely close. So I don't see a fire sale coming. That's not what we do. They won't give away players like Terry and Jonathan Allen to try to start over and start anew. They're going to continue to try to build with what little they have and try to turn this thing into a winner. So I don't think a fire sale is coming. That's never been Daniel Snyder's MO. It's never been his mode of operation. Try to win on the fly. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Big Money Sonny writes, and for old time's sake, can I get a wind wash? P.S. I'm from New York City and rep New York City. Moved to L.A., but PAC is my generation. King salutes. Hey, you were there probably in the golden age, New York too, in the city. I have friends and people that are from New York, and they talk about like reminisce on New York. They talk about New York and what it was, and I bet it was a hell of a city to grow up in. But I'm not a Pac guy. Yeah, I'm a New York guy. I've always been, always will be. That'll never change. I'm not a Too Short guy. Just for whatever reason, I can't get into West Coast music all that heavy. I mean, and there's certain artists that I get down with, but I'm not a West Coast guy. Louie Man 67. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Louie Man 67 writes, I am 22 and HTTR for life, but I've become a big fan of Brady since we're never in the playoffs. Pretty cool. We beat him on his last year potentially. I mean, that is the kind of fan that we were expecting to have. 22-year-old fan never seen winning, watches playoff football of that. And so you end up latching on somewhere else. And that's kind of what Big Money Sonny was referring to. Like, well, he's shocked that there's not more of that with this fan base. And there probably is a lot more of that. There's been a lot more eroding of this fan base than, any of you can imagine out there. Like, it's been really rough, over the last, 20 years. And really the last 10 have been just brutal, starting with Robert Griffin III, and then that situation, declining to what it became, and then the slow deterioration of the fan base, and Bruce Allen talking about we're close, and him just being, the black cloud over this franchise, along with Dan, and just feeling hopeless, like this thing is never going to turn around. That's big time why a lot of the fans have, gone away. I mean, it is what it is, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anthony Pellegrini, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Anthony writes, any thoughts on trading for Bobby Wagner? I wouldn't personally trade for Bobby Wagner. I don't think that Bobby Wagner fits in the time frame of what we're looking to do. Still a highly productive player, but he's north of 30 years old, or at 30 years old, and he doesn't fit the time frame. And you're going to have to, like, Seattle's not going to just give him away. And so for me, Bobby Wagner is cool, but he doesn't really fit with what we're trying to do. And I think you can find, like, Bobby Wagner wasn't a first round pick. I don't even think Bobby Wagner was a second round pick. I think Bobby Wagner was a third round pick out of Utah State, if I'm not mistaken. So you can find linebackers. You just got to know what you're looking for. That's the problem. Like, a lot of the best linebackers in the league weren't first round picks. Devin White is one of the few guys that was a first round. Darius Leonard wasn't a first round pick, even though I thought he was a first round talent. Bobby Wagner wasn't a first round pick. And, so forth and so forth and so forth. Now, again, you go back in time, the first round linebacker was the thing. Patrick Willis was a first round linebacker. Luke Kuechly was a first round linebacker. Ray Lewis was a first round linebacker. Like, generally in the history of this game, you want one of those game changers in the middle of your defense, needed to be a first round guy. But we kind of moved with the game, speed of the game increasing, and people looking for faster linebackers. You could take a safety and make him into a linebacker, and a damn good one. So the way I look at it and the way I see it, it's really, you don't have to take a guy in the first round, but you can find a linebacker. I don't think you need to trade for a Bobby Wagner. And I don't know if Seattle's looking to give him away either. There's been this whole notion of Seattle having a fire sale this offseason. I don't necessarily know if that's the case or not. I don't think they're looking to move Russell Wilson or Bobby Wagner. I think that, they're in a position where they're at a crossroads, but I don't necessarily know if they're looking to move one of those guys or not. I don't want, personally. I'll just say that. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, to make it clear, I'm from New York City, but Gibbs was different. Well, you said you were from New York. So my question to you is, how did you become a Washington fan if you're from New York City? Why aren't you a Giants or a Jets fan? That's the real question. F. Altus, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy F. Altus writes, is there any updates on what the future of our decimated athletic department is? Has there been any updates on the FBI case? I haven't heard much since. Sounds like Ron is going to move in a different direction. This offseason, he said he was going to look for help. They were going to look to hire someone. So I think he's going to go ahead and move away from his guy and just go in a totally different direction. That's what it sounds like. And we'll see what happens there. But you could argue that the demise of our season started with the FBI investigation from an injury standpoint. It was that week 4 contest in Atlanta. We were relatively healthy the first 3 weeks of the season. The FBI investigation happens during the week preparing leading up to that game. He doesn't make the trip with the team. that's when we started having all these injuries week 4, and we were really never healthy after that. Every week it was 12, 14, 15 dudes on the injury report. They'll figure that out. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, off the wall question, Lou. Why didn't we go after Andy Reid? I know the Eagles owned the division during the 2000s, and the entire division was happy to see him go. But why did we pass him up? We weren't looking for a coach the year he got fired, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had Jay Gruden already. Andy Reid, let's see. Andy Reid let's see when he got fired, because we hired Gruden in 2014. That was Gruden's first year in Washington. So let's see. Andy Reid's first year in Kansas City. Andy Reid's first year in Kansas City was 2013. So we already had a coach. Now, I mean, it was Mike Shanahan, and we weren't looking for a coach then. We had Mike Shanahan. And if Andy Reid got fired after the 2012 season, we just were coming off of one of the best seasons we've had in quite some time with Robert Griffin III. Why would we be looking to hire Andy Reid at that time? He got fired after the 12 season. We just won the division, and we think we've got something special with Griffin, Shanahan, and Shanahan. So that's why we didn't go after Andy Reid. And another thing, Andy Reid probably wouldn't have wanted to come here. He's had an up close and personal look at this, organization and what we stand for. And he probably like, no. I know there's about, 15 other organizations that I can go to that I can have more success with than Washington. So I don't think he would have wanted to come here, but we had a coach. We had Shanahan. Kingpin Hill, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kingpin Hill writes, super random. As much as I hated the Jay Gruden era, his coaching tree has flourished around the league. Even Joe B's bum ass looks good now. I don't know if Jay Gruden has a coaching tree per se. A lot of the guys that are doing well started under the Shanahans. Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, they were all here under the Shanahans. Now, some of those guys bled over to Jay, but like Sean McVay. Joe Barry isn't exactly on his tree because he was the coordinator here. Like, when you have a coaching tree, it could be a coordinator, but a lot of times, it's when a guy gets a head coaching job that we consider that a leaf from your tree that sprouts, a seed that sprouts elsewhere. But Joe B, you're right. I thought he was going to be terrible this year. I remember the first game of the season, New Orleans ran them, and they couldn't get a stop in the first 2 weeks of the season. I was like, oh, you know why you're not going to be able to get a stop? Because Joe Barry's your defensive coordinator. Well, not exactly. You give Joe Barry some talent, maybe he can do some things. I don't know. I still think he stinks, but he was getting it done in Green Bay. That's for damn sure. So we'll see what happens. He still ain't getting no damn job. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. JP writes, I got a weird combination of teams. Washington football team, LA Lakers, Boston Red Sox, and the Capitals in the NHL. I also got UNC in college basketball, LSU in college football, and the Mystics in the WNBA. What it sounds like is you are someone that you like popular teams, what you see the most of. That's what captivated you. You latched on to whatever you saw first or whatever, resonated with you at the time. Because they're all really popular teams. It's nobody like off the beaten path. They're all pretty notable teams. So in their respective sports. So yeah, that's what that sounds like to me. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Metaphor, who writes, same as me, Lou. Both kids and I saw Riggins in Super Bowl 26. That's what you want. I mean, you want your kids to grow up seeing the glory years so that they can pass it down. It's hard to convince your son or daughter to pass it down to their kids when this team has fostered nothing but disappointment and heartbreak. You don't want to pass that down to your kids, you know? So, yeah, you want them to be able to see that. So it gives them reason to want to be a fan and want their kids to be a fan and their kids' kids to be a fan. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, East Coast, watch the NFC and NFC East only. Forget the Giants. I hated Parcells. Again, Gibbs was different, brother. Plus, us old cats from New York used to mess around the DMV. Totally get it. Gibbs was different. He was a different dude, man. That's why we loved him. Even the second time around, even 2.0 Gibbs, you can see why he was so adorned and loved. Man, what I wouldn't give to just get Joe in his prime. You know, the Joe that was sleeping at the office 3 days a week. That's part of the reason he had to retire. He had some health issues. I think one of his sons had some health issues, but also Joe, I think he was burnt out. Like, if you watch the speech when he was being awarded the trophy, him and Jack Kent Cook and Charlie Cassidy were being awarded the trophy. And then Leslie Visser asked him, you know, this is your third Super Bowl in 10 years. Do you see yourself, you know, coming back next year? And Joe was non-committal. Like, look, man, I get a lot of credit for things I don't deserve credit for. You know, he's so humble, man. The humility is just pouring out of each and every pore of that man's body. And he's like, yeah, I get credit for things that I don't even deserve. And he's like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. He sounded like he was 1 foot out the door. Even though he coached that next year, he sounded like he was 1 foot out the door already. Anyway. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I got Big Money Sonny writes, football first always. Redskins, let's go. But yeah, my family kept me a Yankees fan, which I absolutely love. I'm alone here, Lou. Help. Oh, I bet. Your family members had nothing to do with that. You didn't have a choice on the Yankees, but they gave you a little leeway in football, and you chose Washington. And now here you are. It didn't make a difference. Had you chose Giants, you'd be in the same spot we in right now. You'd be miserable right now. But at least you'd be miserable with 2 wins over Tom Brady and 2 Super Bowl wins in the last, 15 years. Whereas us, on the other hand, we ain't got shit. So, yeah. Michael White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Michael White writes, Lou, I heard what you said about first-round linebackers. I'm telling you, 100% Dean is a difference-making playmaker, a playmaking linebacker, he says, a playmaking difference maker. I mean, I watched some Nakobe Dean. I haven't watched enough to be able to say he is or he isn't. From what I've watched, he looks good, but he doesn't look like an animal, an uncaged beast. He doesn't look like he's running a 4.4 something. Honestly, I'd be shocked if he ran low 4.5s. He looks like a 4.5, or high 4.5. He looks low. I think I said it right. I always confused on high or low. He looks like he runs like a 4.58 40, which isn't slow, but in today, like a 4.58 5 years ago, you on Madden, that would require an 80. That would require your linebacker to have, 88 speed, which is fast at the linebacker position back in the day. That's not happening anymore. You run a 4.56 or a 4.58, the linebacker position. That's not slow, but it's not Devin White. It's not, what's my guy's name from Dallas that they just took? That's not Micah Parsons. It's not our guy that we took, Jamin Davis. I mean, that's what teams are looking for now. They're looking for that dude that's a 4-3-4-4 blazer at the linebacker position. They're not looking for the dude that's running a 4-5. We call those first and second down linebackers now. They're classified as downhill thumpers. 4.58 is plenty fast in the league. I kid. He just looks like one of those types of dudes. Smart, instinctual. He can get to the football quickly because he sees it and knows, and he goes and he fires his gun off. But I don't think he's super fast. I could be wrong. We'll see. I'm going to watch some tape on him, though. I'm going to watch some more tape on him. Thank you for the super chat, Michael White. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny. Really appreciate you as always, writes. Hey, Lou, last dono. Truly appreciate everything you do. Keep progressing and flourish the fam. Will do. I appreciate that. Likewise to you. Tell them thank you for sharing you with us. Salutes and good night. I will do that, and then there's times where my wife makes the ultimate sacrifice. Obviously we have twins and I'm up here chopping it up with y'all for 3 hours. And, sometimes she's already running on low. We're both running on E, with the twins, the sleep ain't what it used to be. So help is on the way. We have reinforcements coming to help us out, which is going to be a blessing. Cannot wait. Bart Scott can't wait. But, sometimes the sacrifices that have to be made are huge. And big shout out to my wife, man, because without her, none of this is possible. It's just not. So definitely. Really appreciate you, Big Money Sonny, man. If you're still there, peace. Have a good night. You're probably already gone, though. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Metaphor, writes, what if Gibbs came back now and adapted to the new game? Well, he struggled adapting the first time he came back. So I doubt there would be a second. Free agency was brand new to him. Remember, when he left the first time, free agency was only 1 year in. It was in its infant stages. So he really didn't get to experience free agency, truly. I think it was that very next year after he left. Matter of fact, it was the next year after. I think first year of free agency was 93. So that would be the year he left. He left at the end of the 92 season. So he never experienced free agency. And remember, he wasn't a shotgun guy. So remember when he first came back that second season, when we went to the playoffs in 2005, he was still calling the offense. And we were running counter Trey, and our offense looked anemic, but it was good enough. We stood for something. And you always hear guys like Chris Cooley talk about, had Joe just kept the offense the way it was and they continued to build on the things that they did in 2005, they would have been fine. But Joe thought that the game had passed him by, so he went out and got Al Saunders in 2006, and we all know about the legendary 500-page playbook. Don't know if that was a real thing or not, but we would always hear about the 500-page playbook. And, he was a disciple of the Air Coryell offense. So everything was timing and precision based, and it just didn't fit our team. And that's why we struggled in 06. And then, we figured some things out. Obviously, the death of Sean Taylor helped get the team to rally down the stretch. But I think Joe felt like the game passed him by when he came back. I don't think he ever was truly comfortable. He wasn't comfortable with personnel that obviously Adam Archuleta, Antoine Randall, Brandon Lloyd, TJ Duckett. He wasn't comfortable with trades and free agency. He didn't really. He's like a kid in a candy store. He didn't really know when to say no. And remember, we were trying to give up 2 first-round picks for Chad Johnson. Like, we truly did not get it back then. So I couldn't see Joe coming back and It's just too demanding physically. It was physically demanding when Joe was a young man the first time around, when Joe was probably in his mid-40s, early 50s when he quit the first time. Joe probably was in his 40s because he was a pretty young guy when he got the job in 81. He was a young coach coming from the Chargers. I think he was a special teams coach coming from the Chargers. So Joe was probably in his early to mid 40s when he called it quits the first time. So he was putting in a lot of work then. He can't put that kind of work in now. Carlton Bacano Jackson, my guy CPJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, just showing love. I appreciate you, CPJ, man. Thank you so much for the super chat, and salute to you and yours, man. Really do appreciate you. That is the last super chat of the night. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. The next time we are live, it will be rebranding breakfast. I will put that stream up so you'll know when it'll be 7 that morning of the day of the reveal. We'll be here until they do it. So we'll get here early, 7 o'clock. And if they don't announce the name until 9, we'll be here till 9. And then afterwards, obviously, we'll have react to the name and the logo and the jersey and the colors and everything else, this, that, and third. We'll talk about it all, on the stream. I've been dismissive of this name the entire time. And truth be told, I care, right? I don't care enough to get into the minutia of debating on what it's going to be. But you want the jerseys to look dope. You want the logo to look sweet. You want the name to make sense. You want all these things because it's your favorite team, right? But at the end of the day, I just want to win. And I'm assuming the day of, I'll be all excited and like, okay, let's see what it looks like. But at the end of the day, it'll last for all the 2 seconds for me. And then the focus reshifts back to, okay, this is cool, but we need to win. So what are you going to do in the offseason to help us get one step closer to doing that? Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to whatever this team is going to be called next week. Got a super chat here from Metaphor on the way out. Thank you for the super chat, Metaphor. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, be sure to have NFL Shop open during stream. Order yours. Look, I got to make sure I like it first, and then I got to see how they trying to bust you over the head, because I know they're gonna come for your pockets hard and heavy, because obviously it's brand new merch and they know you're gonna be clamoring for it. So they're not gonna probably take it easy on you, on your wallet either. They probably gonna try to blaze you for the 45, for the 50 right out of the gate, just for a hat, just for a lid. So I gotta see what it looked like. I gotta analyze it and see what they talk about. But anyway, I will see you guys. Condo P says no live for the post games this weekend. Of course, I'm talking about for Washington shows. Condo P, yeah, I'm gonna be live after both of the championship games. I mean, if you're a Washington fan and like Big Money Sandy says, like, I don't watch any other games, just NFC. I don't really care about anything else. You might not be watching any of those other games. You might not be a part of those streams. Of course, I'm going to be here for that. I'll be live for the podcast tomorrow. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here doing the normal business as usual, but it'll just be next Wednesday for the Washington rebrand and breakfast. That'll be the next time we'll be in a live setting for this team in particular. So anyway, I digress. You guys have a great night. I can't thank you enough for you guys coming and chopping it up with me. Condo P for holding it down in the comment section and being a moderator and just making sure everything is peacefully kept and the conversation continues to move forward in the comment section. And all of you for participating, whether you are just in the comment section or you're super chatting, whatever the case may be. I really do appreciate every single one of you guys. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you to enjoy the rest of your evening. And I will see you, some of you, for the podcast tomorrow, others for overtime on Sunday of the championship games. And the rest of you, I'll see you for rebrand and breakfast next Wednesday, 2/2/22, when we find out what the very new name, the next step in the process of this organization's rebrand, the final process and step. The name, the logo, the jerseys, the color scheme, we'll see it all. So I'll see you guys then. Until then, you guys take care. God bless and good night.